to see. Will speak, manifest beside me, my angel, for all to see.
Did you know that 85% of your engine wear occurs at startup? Yes, that is correct, and this is where Lower the Friction comes in by putting a protective, lubricating barrier on all moving parts. This now gives you full-time protection to make your engine last longer, run smoother, give you better performance, and improved fuel economy. People across the country are reporting some very exciting results. Go to lowerthefriction.com, place your order, and enter in promo code SOS to get 5% off of your order. That's lowerthefriction.com. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome! This is the weekly Secrets of Saturn live stream. Other than the little extra we did yesterday to premiere I'm the Slime. I hope you guys enjoyed that for those who tuned in, that my friend Brett Dietz and I did. But anyway, this is our regular weekly stream, and on this episode we're going to be breaking down the white paper called Apocalyptic AI, Religion and the Promise of Artificial Intelligence by a Dr. Robert M. Gerasi, not sure how you pronounce his name. And this is more of this crazy transhumanism crap that we always talk about, except again, with these white papers, they're always very blunt about everything. But anyway, I will not pontificate too much. This week, of course, I've always got Wayne with me, but we also brought on Russian Vids and the Great Baldini, and we're going to take turns bashing out this transhumanism insanity. So welcome, gentlemen.
Good evening, Jason.
You couldn't do that again if you
Everybody
tried.
talk at once.
All at once.
That was great.
We're all excited to be on. That's why we all, got all excited and said at the same time.
That's great. So anyway, I'll lead us off here with this white paper. I'll read the first paragraph and get us started here. But before I do that, I just want to give a little background. I don't know if you took a moment to look up who this cat was. But apparently he's a religious kind of guy. Let me not butcher this. He is Robert Gerasi.
Jurassic Park.
Yeah, exactly. I'm Texan, but living, teaching, and writing in New York City. I'm pretty sure that everyone loves robots, which is why I've written a book about them. People love games too, so I wrote another book. I'm also interested in the soaring cathedrals of our religious imagination. Likewise, the dark tunnels of mining and rapid transit. I visit mountains, deserts, temples, laboratories, factories, virtual realities, the places where magic enters the world. Thanks to a Fulbright Nehru Research Award, I spent 5 months at the Indian Institute of Science in Bangalore, where I interviewed dozens of scientists in academia, industry, and hacker culture. It offers new insights into contemporary India and into methodology in the study of religion, science, and technology. Let's see. In 2018-19, I was back on sabbatical and back in India, once again under the auspices of a Fulbright Nehru Award. I was affiliated with the National Institute of Advanced Studies, and I conducted research for a new project investigating the contemporary culture of traditional handcrafts. Overall, my interest is in how we use technology to enchant and give meaning to the world. To study this, I use ethnographic fieldwork, methods from science and technology studies, especially actor network theory, literature and science fiction studies, and the hodgepodge of methods that all of us in religion and science studies put to use. Within the study of religion and science, I am a fellow of the International Society for Science and Religion. So this guy is an interesting fellow, to say the least.
He's one of the social engineers, let's put it that way.
Yeah, I find it interesting that the white paper was published in the Journal of American Academy of Religion, so it definitely is from a, quote, religious or seminarian viewpoint.
Oh, and by the way, he is the professor in the Department of Religious Studies at Manhattan College. That is his normal position. So, that's that. So at least we know where we're coming from when we start talking about this. By the way, is the audio good for everybody? Chat room, if you want to let me know, thank you so much. Hello to everybody there. Looks like we've got almost 200 folks already. Let's see how D-Live is piling up. Only 41. Where are all the bears? Will more show up if I say Owen Benjamin's going to be here?
Promise punch and pie.
Yeah, punch and
pie.
pie. Punch and pie.
Thanks, Don. Formerly Hip says the audio is good. So,
awesome.
It's interesting before you even, because when you get into the very first, the very first paragraph, of this white paper. The interesting thing is how he points out that he begins by saying one of mankind's most cherished dreams, religious, scientific, and artistic circles, has been creation of humanoid life. And it's very interesting. He includes religious there when one of the very old traditions is that one of the reasons the enemy of mankind from a spiritual point of view, if you want to say the shaitan or Satan or the devil, whoever, was irritated and jealous of man, is that he did not have the ability to himself create, and that was given to man, that we had the ability to create life. And so it has always been within that circle to try to create an artificial life form. And then, they nail it right from the very beginning and go, we've always wanted that. I thought, well, that's very, very interesting that they should start there.
Right. All right, let me do the intro paragraph here, and then we can start all kicking this around the can. Popular science publications in robotics and artificial intelligence reveal a striking merger between apocalyptic religious thought and scientific research. 3 major elements characterize early Jewish and Christian apocalypticism: alienation within the world, desire for the establishment of a heavenly new world, and the transformation of human beings so that they may live in that world in purified bodies. In Apocalyptic AI, these characteristics are attributed scientific authority. Or is that authority? Apocalyptic AI advocates, frustrated by the limitations of bodily life, look forward to a virtual world inhabited by intelligent machines and human beings who have left their bodies. Having downloaded their consciousnesses into machines, human beings will possess enhanced mental abilities and, through their infinite replicability, immortality. All right, so that opening paragraph has so much in it, but go ahead, whoever wants to take it first.
If you guys don't mind,
there's the Pandora's box right there. Go ahead.
Thanks. Yeah, this is something that I've extensively covered in the past. I haven't touched upon it recently, but years ago, we all, of course, understand that Hollywood is a huge part of social programming, going back not only here in the U.S., but, of course, Germany. A lot of these people, the propaganda machine they love Disney, they love movies because it's literally the best form of programming. People have their subconscious being programmed when they're sitting in a dark theater. They don't they watch the news, they read the paper, they might have their guard up, but when you watch a movie, again, you have your guard down. A lot of things are enter your subconscious, and that gets you look at the list of movies throughout history, going back to Metropolis, and this is a German-made movie, and there's so much occult in plain sight, upside down pentagrams. The robotic female, which later on, if you look at the prototype drawings for Star Wars in Ralph McQuarrie, you'll see the similarities there. There's a ton of similarities with that, but there's so much occult symbolism. Again, the one female, she does the one-eye symbolism. If anybody just Googles Metropolis movie 1927, you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. But again, you go through history. Of course, you have a Space Odyssey 2001, and the occult aspect of it being released in 1968. It's a movie called 2001. That's a 33-year difference. So these are Masonic coded throughout, and of course how very so-called intelligent these creations by humans that are more human than human or more intelligent than humans. So there's a lot of that. Of course, Star Wars, like I mentioned, R2-D2, C-3PO, and they're always confiding to C-3PO for the information. Movies like Blade Runner, where you have the replicants, and they're like superior. This is the whole thing is they're trying to outdo the creator, trying to make something superior to humans. So the list goes on and on. Of course, with Star Trek and Data. This very
RV, did you see the sequel, the Blade Runner sequel?
Yeah, I actually not the whole thing, but I've seen a good part of it. There's some flat Earth references in there with the firmament that was mentioned. I showed that in videos, but I caught the major parts of it. I'm really bad because I'm always like doing stuff online. I'm like peeking over at a movie I have playing. I'm not fully paying attention, but when something catches my ear, I kind of like, whoa. What did they just say? So
something did. That's why I brought it up. in the sequel.
Yeah, the thing is though, the thing about me is I rarely have my TV on. What I do have my TV on is to play older movies because I know there's so much, again, social programming in there. I really like to pinpoint things and look for predictive programming and a lot of hints, and I see it all over the place. So yeah, it's so very important. But again, getting back to this whole concept, it's everywhere. iRobot, of course, the Superman movies, Tron, Daryl. I don't know if you guys seen that movie Daryl from 1985.
I remember that one. With
that young child who's made in a lab, and I mean everything he does from baseball to playing video games, he's superior. RoboCop. I mean the list goes on and on and on with all these movies. Of course, Total Recall. I mean I keep going on forever. Basically, that's what Hollywood is. Nothing more than programming, and this is one agenda they're really pushing.
What I want to tell you, RV, is in the sequel, the Jared Leto character, who was blind, by the way, calls the new replicants, since he started up that program again, he called them his angels.
Wow.
Thought you'd like that.
Yeah. That's the thing. Is like I said, I gotta really sit down and watch it. Which I'm so busy all the time. I used, back in the old days, back in the 80s, I used to actually sit down and watch a movie uninterrupted. Now I'm like I said, I'm online. I'm kind of peeking over type of thing, and I definitely got to sit down and actually watch this because, when the firmament was mentioned and all that, I played that in clips. I definitely got to pay closer attention. That's a big one right there with the angels and all that with the replicants.
There's a little prologue they did that's only like 5 minutes long. You can watch that for free on YouTube. Just check that out, and you'll get a lot of it right there without even have to watch the whole freaking 3.5 hour movie, whatever it is.
Yeah, the thing is with me is, like I said, I mean, when it comes to movies, being so busy, and a lot of the remakes, they're always garbage. The rehashes are garbage, but this one looks actually decent. I just got to spend the time to actually to analyze it and break it down, and actually that's something I need to do. I need to look at a lot of these more recent movies, and with my channel, actually I have a tremendous help from a lot of my followers. They're always cluing me in on, hey, you got to check the scene out from this movie, and then of course I'll look it up and I'll look further. So a lot of people do that research for me as far as finding little Easter eggs. I found a lot myself going back to the 80s, recalling a lot of movies, but movies, during this era, I'm just not going to theater. I'm not going to be spending money for these garbage movies that I know that are programmed. But again, we need to hone in on this because there's definitely predictive programming in movies for sure. So this is an important aspect that I should, of course, be. Thanks to people helping me out. Like I said, I don't have to watch all these movies day in and day out, but this definitely helps that I'm having people point things out. And thanks to you, Jason, for pointing that out to me too. I'm definitely going to take a closer look at the new Blade Runner.
Anybody else got anything about the opening salvo here? You want me to go to the next paragraph?
Well, just just to touch on that, as RB always says, truth in the movies lies in the news, right? But it's not just that. I mean, I haven't been much of a gamer for a number of years because you get older and kind of busy and you can't sit around and do it. But I have seen a ton of clips. Some of them show up on YouTube. That AI is a major component, as a theme element in many of these storyline in many video games. And some of them seem to, like the clips I've seen, they spell it right out, how AI, takes over and pretends to be, uninterested or certainly objective. So they're given sort of the top spot. They made AI kind of like the arbiter or the ruler over humanity. So there would be fairness, and of course they're only as good as who programmed them. And so somebody basically they're evil. It's a fact. I mean, some of these storylines are really complex, and they just spell it right out, right? So if you do just kind of, if you want to poke around and as I say, consult the Oracle, or just do a quick search for artificial intelligence as characters in video games, you'll find an enormous list. It's a very extensive list of AI as a crucial element within video games, and they're spelling it right out. I mean, many video games also again talk about secret societies and Assassin's Creed reading all this stuff. They put all, like, again, truth in plain sight, and they're programming a younger generation. So stuff that guys our age probably wouldn't catch, right? We might see movies, or we might see predictive programming in the news, but we would be ignorant of the stuff in video games if somebody didn't point our attention to it. So again, kudos to some of the younger folks who have taken clips of this and pointed these things out as well. You can find, again, a number of these things on YouTube.
Wayne?
So
Right,
just
there's
a whole
this
other category
weird,
of it.
Yeah, there's always this weird crossover in video games in particular between AI and quote-unquote aliens, and also like angels and demons and things like that. There's always seems to be this weird crossover in a lot of these video games, and Assassin's Creed is a perfect example of that. The very first Assassin's Creed game, it was interesting because this depicts, actually, it's a guy in the present who goes to this company, this corporation, who has this machine that they put him in, and he could actually project his consciousness backwards into time, and they're looking through time through his genetic memories and stuff like that from his family lineage. It's really very telling when you take a look at this video game. We could probably actually do a whole show on that.
Probably.
It's been years and years since
well
I played it, though.
Yeah, that comports well to Operation Looking Glass and the supposed technology involved with that, sort of like an electronic scrying mirror, if you will. So really interesting
and this
stuff there.
This actually takes you back through actual historical events and stuff too, at certain points within there, and it shows you actually how the as a guild and stuff actually worked, and as a secret society, some of the methodologies and stuff that they used. It was a really interesting game, but I mean, I played that, I don't even know how many years ago, and even back then, before I was really heavily vested in researching a lot of this stuff at that point, I had known a little bit about it, but I noticed a lot of things in there that I had pulled out from, that game. So it really gives you an interesting look at how these different motifs and stuff are put into the popular culture, and how they're just showing them to us at this point, because that covers everything from secret societies to, at the end, one of the big twists is it's some kind of alien technology or something at the end. I don't quite exactly remember, but I played the whole game the whole way through to the completion. So it talks about that and these different methodologies, these technologies, artificial intelligence, all these different things kind of cross over together. And they seem to do that a lot with a lot of these different games. Yeah, so it is a popular platform for programming right now, more so, I would say, than even the movies or the television and stuff like that. But
right, and it's also interactive.
Always leads back to this AI theme. So that's an important thing to keep in mind. It's really on the front of people's minds right now. AI, it's the popular topic, and it's the thing that's being really pushed heavily right now.
Yeah, AI in the business model as well. But yeah, it's that would be worthy, I think, of its own, certainly its own episode. At least just the look at the predictive programming within video games, because it's an interactive solution as well. So again, it engages the mind and the emotions in a different way, even than narrative transportation in film. Right? I mean, it's like it gets you part of the as a character in it. So definitely a powerful means of programming there as well. So yeah, it's something we should take a look at in the future. Let's I guess keep going.
What do you think Dig Dug means?
Dude, man, I dug it when I was digging it, Dude, I was
well, you know what?
I was sinking deep.
Yeah, I don't mean to interject. Sorry about that, guys. I'm bad with that. But, me being a big video game guy, taking a look at the occult side, you just mentioning Dig Dug of video games, just take a look at the release date for the Atari 2600, September 11th, 1977. And the first batch of games, there's so much programming, Space Invaders, of course, with the whole alien aspect, asteroids. Yep. And we know about Carol Rosen, the sidekick for Werner von Braun, talking about what Werner von Braun said is going to take place in the future with the so-called terrorism, asteroids, and then an alien invasion. So these are setting up, again, the subconscious. And, you look at, beyond that, just look at the occultic side of every single video game system, the Sega Genesis. Sega's not even a word. It's just ages backwards. So it's literally the ages of Genesis, or ages of the of the beginning. And you have, prior to that, you had the Sega Master System. These are like, very occultic type of, being put out there type of concepts. And you have like the GameCube, of course, more recently, the Xbox with Microsoft, Bill Gates. Mm-hmm. So what I'm getting at is they're controlling all aspects. We're talking about artificial intelligence. We're talking about movies, but there's a huge side of it with programming, like a game like Berserk, where you're this humanoid and all these androids, artificial intelligence are coming to get you type of thing. Mm-hmm. So they always have that aspect of robots, being superior type things, and the poor human being just trying to survive in a lot of these video games. So, there's so much more to it, but that's just, just a glimpse of a lot of things I've covered as far as video games. There's so much more. I can go on and on.
Oh, no, that's a great topic, actually. And I would love to do it. I'll tell you what, RV. People don't... I was making the joke about Dig Dug because it was the goofiest one that popped in my head. The next one would be Yar's Revenge. But the seriousness is the programming does go back decades. We all know this. And that would probably be a cool topic because people probably overlook it. They're thinking more in the past 10, 15 years when the game started getting more realistic and all the 3D and all that stuff. But seriously, there's got to be programming back then. It wasn't like there weren't bad guys doing bad things in the 1970s, So, yeah, that'd be a really cool topic to get to.
Yeah, just a couple more things. For example, just the logo itself with Atari is a trident, People are like, they have no idea what they're actually looking at. And, of course, one thing I should mention with Secrets of Saturn is the Sega Saturn. And, of course, it's like it's a black box. And, again, Sega is ages in
Black Cube,
reverse.
wasn't it, dude?
Yeah, Black Cube. And so, basically, it's the ages of Saturn, Sega. Everything's coded, hidden. I don't want to, going too far with the video games, but definitely something to really go in depth in the future. You can go on and on about games like Castlevania and Ghouls and Ghosts and Goblins, and all these type of themes. Just so much going back to Japan. And again, I'm really a video game guy, so going back to names being changed from like the original name in Japan and how it's translated. It's more of a softer version when it's released in the U.S. And Japan is much more hardcore, and they don't mind I'll just say it like. Ghosts and Goblins in Japan is literally Demon's World. It's too kind of hardcore for the U.S. audience, so they kind of soften it up. Things like that. We'll get into that more later on in the future, but it definitely something that very interests me. And again, knowing all aspects of society are controlled. It's not just the movies. It's not just the politicians. It goes obviously much deeper.
All right, I'm going to jump on to the second paragraph here, if that's cool. One of mankind's most cherished dreams in religious, scientific, and artistic circles has been the creation of humanoid life. The Pygmalion myth in ancient Greece and the Golem myth in medieval Judaism, for example, reflect this drive within artistic and religious spheres, respectively. In science, a long tradition of automatons includes ancient Greek water mechanisms, 17th century Japanese tea-serving dolls, and 18th century European automata such as Vaucanson's wing-flapping, eating, and defecating duck, or Jacques Droz's piano player. Contemporary robotic technology continues this trend. Often, the creation of...
What about the Turkish chess player?
Yeah, I remember that one. That was 1800s, I think, right?
Yeah,
Often, the creation of intelligent life is simultaneously religious, scientific, and artistic. Neat divisions among these categories cannot be easily drawn even today, when robotics and artificial intelligence hold the most promise for realizing this long-standing dream.
The long-standing dream of creating a defecating duck. I gotta love it.
This is my pooping mallard. Do you like it? It is my life's work.
Yes, this is my robotic pooping mallard. His name's Eddie. You like him? Yeah, sorry, I can't get past that.
It's good to have a little humor. This is like this transhumanism shit gets really heavy sometimes.
Oh, it sure does.
And what about that song as well? What was it? 9 Inch Nails, More Human Than Human?
Yeah, More Human Than Human.
That's not 9 Inch Nails.
Yeah.
That is
Rob's
White
Zombie.
Zombie. Yeah.
Oh, okay, that's right. Yeah, I'm sorry.
But still,
as far as the music side of, not an expert on the music side, but that's a lyric that kind of popped in my head. Again, kind of subconscious type programming.
well, the point is still the same, though.
Yes, absolutely. It's like I said, it's everywhere. Definitely.
I'm a little bit too loud, so I'm gonna back off my mic. Apparently, let me move off here slightly. I love this new boom I got. It's actually a good one instead of that piece of crap I had before, but it's actually staying in place. so I actually can be too loud now.
Yeah, it's nice. Yeah.
Oh yeah. By the way, if you need anything like this is the Blue Compass. My other one was like a cheap Chinese knockoff piece of junk, and it kept falling and rotating out of place. This thing, it stays exactly where you put it. It's freaking fantastic. But anyway, anyone got any comments on that, or do you want me to continue?
Just keep going.
In the late,
it gets so heavy in a minute. It's like
yeah, right.
Right.
In the late 20th century and early 21st century, a number of influential roboticists and AI pioneers wrote popular science books revealing the close connections between religion and science in contemporary life. Major figures in this movement include roboticist Hans Moravec, AI inventor Ray Kurzweil, neural net builder Hugo de Garis, and UK roboticist Kevin Warwick. The two most important figures in this group, which I call Apocalyptic AI, are Hans Moravec and Ray Kurzweil. I think everybody by now knows that Ray Kurzweil is like one of the most outspoken, front and center kind of characters in this whole technology transhumanism push. Both have been widely recognized for their scientific contributions, in addition to their influence on pop science. Moravec, a living legend and the founder of Apocalyptic AI, made seminal contributions to robot vision and navigation. He helped design the Stanford Cart, the first computer-controlled autonomous vehicle, and, before becoming chief scientist at Seagrid Corporation, Moravec was research scientist at Carnegie Mellon University's famed Robotic Institute, where he founded the Mobile Robotics Lab. Kurzweil, the movement's chief evangelist, is well known for his inventions in optical character recognition, speech recognition, and other AI fields. He has been awarded the $500,000 Lemelson MIT Prize, the 1999 National Medal of Technology, and is a member of the National Inventors Hall of Fame. Moravec and Kurzweil elegantly conjure a fantastic paradise in which robotics and AI improve humankind and the world. In doing so, these AI advocates lead a scientific movement that never strays far from the apocalyptic traditions of Western culture. My goodness, this guy is very wordy.
Indeed.
He's almost like wanking himself as he's writing.
He's worthy he's worthy of Baldini right there.
Yeah, but
being extra worthy.
But at least if I'm gonna expand on something, I'm not gonna have to repeat it the same thing 5 or 6 times. He's gotten through 6 paragraphs of
this guy. I just picture him sitting at a typewriter at a keyboard, going, Ray Kurzweil, Sorry, carry on.
Pretty much, yeah. I do find it interesting his choice that he keeps repeating apocalyptic AI.
Yeah.
It's an interesting choice of words.
It is, and we'll see later on down in the document where when they're speaking of apocalyptic AI, when he's using the term apocalyptic, they're looking at it through a more positive lens than, say, a negative lens, which would normally be associated with the word. Because when you think of apocalypse, you're thinking of the ending. Well, they're looking at it as a beginning, and they see the whole transhumanist singularity as the means of fulfilling these religious prophecies and such. And they see this as being our next transcended state. So they view actually, the incorporation of the human consciousness into machines as the same allegorical sense of us existing in the New Jerusalem. And they actually mention the New Jerusalem later on down in the document. So this is kind of the thing they're looking at. So they see this as the fulfillment of the resurrection promised in the Bible. So that's what, the terms and stuff that they're coming at it from. So when you realize that these guys that are really pushing the transhumanism hardcore here, like the Kurzweils and the Moravecs of the world, they're bought into this, like, completely, and they have no qualms with lining up with biblical prophecy or anything like that with it, because they see it as the ultimate fulfillment of that. So, they have no qualms with actually pushing this stuff, or trying to arrive at these ends with the means that they're using. So they have no what should I say, reservations about doing this, and that's their whole gist with it. So they see it as an overwhelmingly positive thing, and they really firmly believe that they're doing good by mankind by doing this, that this is what was actually programmed into us from God to do.
I find it really interesting, though, that how many of these guys, they take a position. They think they're doing the world good by advancing evil enough so that the cup is full to make it happen quicker, right? And even though, Jesus specifically said, we know these things will come, but woe unto him through whom it comes. It's interesting how many take that approach, that they absolutely believe it, and they're willing to fill the cup to make it happen more quickly. I find that a fascinating view.
Right. The thing is, they think that they know better than, the whole of humanity, like the rest of humanity. They think they're more educated and more worthy to make these decisions for all of humankind. And that's that I take exception to. So.
Yeah. Although it's going to it's intentional meaning, which is revelation, right? So as a revealing, rather than we think of it as an ending, because revelation, the book does spell an ending thing, but to reveal is simply to open something up, and to reveal something. And apocalypse means the same thing, the unveiling, the revealing. So certainly they see it in a different context.
Right, they see it in the context of this being the fulfillment of that, of what's being revealed. So they see this as the positive step forward, as the quote-unquote next step in human evolution, the merging of man with machine to become transhuman or human plus. And that's what they're looking at. They really firmly believe that by doing this, we could become God. And I think there's going to be ramifications for that, because in my heart, I know that this is a lie, because only the Creator could make something equal to what he's already created. I mean, no creation could actually create something greater than their Creator. And we're all created beings, and therefore anything we create cannot, by definition, be greater than we are, let alone be greater than God. But they believe that through using these technologies, they could create something that is a sort of God, that is greater than us and greater than our Creator. And it just defies logic to think in those terms, but they're so bought into it and think it's such a feasible thing that they're going for it. They equate computing speed and things like that to intelligence, and it's not a 1-to-1, because we still really don't have any idea how consciousness even really operates. So if you come at it from that perspective, if you don't fully understand how consciousness even operates, how could you create a consciousness?
Yeah,
it's not possible.
I don't think you can, but I think that there's in part the reason that they're programming or making people believe that it's possible. To me, it's going to be a deception. It will appear to be general artificial AI and a sentient machine. I think it will be probably something entirely different. To me, because everything they do is a deception, right? But I often view the actions of those who are, near the capstone, and keep in mind that the capstone of the pyramid is separate, right? So that seems to be a different thing. But I think that from my perspective, when I see those guys, I see many of them seem to be true believers, but they themselves are deceived, insofar as I can tell. They're buying into a lie. They think they're going to get something out of it that they won't necessarily, if you make a deal with the devil, right, you always get the short end of that stick. Exactly. So it does seem, from my perspective, I think that many of them are true believers in what they're doing, but they are themselves deceived, and they'll be, I think, unpleasantly surprised at what happens. But many of them, I think, believe that something can occur, but they are themselves deceived. But I think that ultimately, the promise of a sentient artificial intelligence, I don't think it can be done. Simply transistor switches, I don't care how fast you do them, is not human intelligence. right? And what we
Right.
see, what we talked about last time, for example, with panpsychism, is that everything in creation seems to have a kind of sentience, even water, right? Even rocks seem to have a kind of intelligence about them. So I think that, again, anything that we try to make is going to be certainly inferior to what the original creation was. And we've talked about this over and over, that when the controllers can't be God of the real creation, they make their own false virtual creation in order to be God over it, and then attempt to get people to consent to join in that false reality.
Yeah,
Right.
one thing I want to mention is, of course, I mean, we're talking about AI, but they're trying to outdo God in every way, making a better Apple, always, trying to outdo God in man-made medicine where, natural medicines are mocked and what man creates is better type of thing. And, of course, removing the creator makes them gods in their eyes, and everything they're doing, every little aspect, like I said earlier, is part of their control mechanism, controlling the masses, and of course, like I said, outdoing God.
Yeah, absolutely. All right.
And you'll notice, though, they do put some little nuggets of truth in a lot of these white papers and stuff. You'll notice they draw allegories to things like the golem. And when you look at the golem, what is this? Well,
And
it's
Pygmalion,
and Pygmalion. These things are animated by some kind of a spirit. But, AI doesn't necessarily have a spirit. So that might be kind of a foretelling or, a foreshadowing of things to come with this. Will there be something else that these artificial intelligent machines will be housing? Who knows? I mean, we don't know the exact spiritual side of things that go along with this, but I see
my
that as a
suspicion.
very real possibility.
Yeah, that's my
Yeah.
suspicion. That's what I was kind of getting to in an oblique way, is that when I say it's a deception, it's possible that they could be building a platform that some extra-dimensional intelligence could occupy and pretend to be a sentient machine when it's something very different.
Right, something maybe sinister, perhaps.
Malevolent.
We've
yes.
had we've had some serious scientists and stuff telling us this. Jordy Rose, the former COO of D-Wave Incorporated, has talked about this numerous times. People could look up YouTube videos of him saying that they're going to be, pretty much essentially what's going to happen when they start building a lot of these sentient artificial intelligences is it's kind of, comparable to perhaps summoning the great old ones of, the whole concept that
Exactly.
Lovecraft put out, like things like that. So
he also described,
he talks about these things openly, and that's the thing. And he's a serious scientist, computer programmer.
And Jordy Rose also, he described when he was describing the D-Wave computer, he's like, yeah, it's like this, it's like an altar to an alien god, and he was, in glowing terms. Speaking of that, and
I actually have that video posted on my YouTube channel, Alchemical Tech Revolution.
There you
YouTube, if you wanted to look at that and see. I have the video. It's him at a conference called Idea City. I think it was back in 2013, talking about the wonders of the D-Wave computer and how being in its proximity is like standing at the altar of an alien god.
Yeah, exactly.
And he talks about how the pulse tube dilation refrigerator inside it, which keeps the processor at close to absolute zero temperature so that the quantum processor could operate. He says this sounds like a heartbeat. So, I mean, you can see this language. I'm serious. People
No, I
go
believe
watch
you.
this video. I have it on my YouTube channel. So, yeah, I mean, so these are the kinds of things that people that are working in this field are thinking of. And yet, despite the fact that, they have these thoughts crossing their mind about this, they're still working at it. And it seems to be like they want something like that to come to fruition. And we all know intention is everything, and intent is everything. So, when you're looking at these people who are working on these things are actually having these kind of thoughts about it, it could be a little scary to think about at times. So we need to be wary of this stuff. And, I don't think mankind could create, per se, anything, like as far as, an intelligent life form or something like that. I would say that the spirit animating it would come from somewhere else. Man has nothing to do with that. We cannot create a spirit.
Yeah, I'll jump in here and I'll say, this is something I've covered years ago, and a lot of truthers would attack me, say a decade ago, saying how the so-called celebrity cloning is a hoax. This is all just, nonsense. It's, a lot of people get involved with nonsense like cloning. I'm not saying from birth. I'm talking about, like, for example, Eminem. They just created a new Eminem in some cloning factory. I'm like, I tell this to people, I said, look, the fantasy is always better than the reality. You're just pulling things out of thin air, and it sounds cool, sounds interesting, but people are running with it like it's fact, and they're saying, no, you're wrong, RV. We know they have cloning factories. Okay, where's your proof? If you're telling me you know about these cloning factories, where is it? Wisconsin, Idaho? Tell me where it's at. Let's dig deep in this stuff. So that's one thing about me is I really stick to things we can prove. And getting back to the movie aspect, over the years, people say, the movies they release now, they really suck. Well, that's because it's always about programming first and the entertainment aspect. They don't give a damn about the population, of course. It's always gonna be about programming, and they're gonna fit a story around it to make it somewhat entertaining. One thing I found interesting, maybe I'll send you this list, Jason, of movies based on artificial intelligence throughout the years.
Okay.
I find one interesting. It's called AI from 2001. Artificial Intelligence 2001, but year after year after year, and I'll put it maybe in the chat here, and you could just take a peek at this and all these movies. And I'm really harping on this because, again, it's really the most powerful weapon used against the masses is entertainment. It's really needs to be spotlighted here, and I'll put that right now in the chat.
And
Cool.
RV, isn't that the one
Thank
that Stanley Kubrick started and Spielberg completed? That one?
AI.
Yeah.
The one that was released in 2001, you're talking about the artificial intelligence, the AI movie?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That was actually produced by the Kathleen Kennedy, who is, of course, has a huge part in with Lucasfilm.
That
Steven
horrible
Spielberg,
woman.
like you said. Yeah, Steven Spielberg directed it.
But Kubrick started it, right? Then,
supposedly.
Stanley Kubrick started it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I got to look at it, actually. I've been looking at all the... Yeah, you're right. Exactly. It was directed by Stanley Kubrick right there. And like I said, this is just, what it comes down to, all these writers, directors, producers in Hollywood, of course, they're all Masons, and they know what they're doing is propaganda 100%, without a shadow of a doubt.
Absolutely.
And, of course, all the predictive programming, besides the programming, the predictive programming aspect, which has nothing to do with the topic we're talking about now, but another huge aspect of Hollywood.
Sure. And another one that many people don't remember, they come up with iRobot and AI, but one that many people forget is Robin Williams in Bicentennial Man. Another very interesting look at the AI and robotics and sort of the immortality of artificial intelligence. So again, there's a ton of them, and just watched saw a little clip of was it Aaliyah Battle Angel or whatever that is?
Alita Battle
just
Angel,
kind of saw it. Yeah, I just saw a little bit of it scrolling through last night, and I was like, there they go again.
That one, they're all obsessed with transhumanism. Like, everybody wants to be upgraded, and they do battle, and they're really obsessed with getting the next part for themselves, and people are capturing each other and stripping them apart. I mean, it's pretty twisted.
And don't forget, I mean, even again, the Pixar movies, there's WALL-E, which is kind of more recent, but even going back, Robots was all about the upgrade. And again, sort of a sinister plot, right, to make people, the robots up. These themes are continually put out there. And again, as RB keeps saying, truth in the movies, lies in the news.
Yep,
yes, exactly.
What about another one here we could use as an example of the similar type of motif here? Pokemon. Think about that for a second. It's all about upgrading and capturing and holding this thing prisoner and making it fight and upgrading it.
Gotta catch them all.
That kind of thing. And you gotta catch them all. And they've even used this as a platform to surveil people. I mean, remember Pokemon Go? You remember that whole thing a couple of years ago? Tying in the augmented reality technologies together and making that a popular thing.
Yeah, I heard through the grapevine.
Part and parcel of things to come.
Yeah, I heard through the grapevine that and there was another game that was kind of released similar about the same time where it was like a virtual sort of battle thing, but people had to get in red or blue groups and meet up in places, and whoever had the most people there one, but that was actually developed specifically by the intelligence community as a tool for basically the electronic fence. And then they hired people to turn it upside down and release it as a game. The one with the red-blue battle thing, and then they co-opted that same technology to do in Pokemon Go. But that's what I kind of, again, it's hard for me to confirm, but the sources are pretty solid. The people that I know that kind of work in that community, and that was apparently from what they said, where that was development of something that came from DARPA, having to do with tracking. Using an electronic fence and driving motion to see if they could sort of like geocaching, right? The same similar idea, getting people to go to a specific place and seeing like how long it takes to get there and all the, how they can manipulate them as they go. And that was an intelligence community thing, and then repackaged as a game so that people would again willingly do it. And we certainly saw that explode with Pokemon Go when it was first released.
Yeah, and I kind of wonder, with all this COVID stuff going on, are they putting extra Pokemon critters in people's houses just to keep them home now?
It wouldn't surprise me.
They still play.
One thing funny, I want to just jump in, way off topic. We want to stay away from the COVID thing, but one thing I've really want to spotlight is, China, of course, where this all started, and you have Vietnam right next door with nearly 100 million people. And guess how many deaths they had supposedly from COVID?
I don't know. How many? None?
How about zero? Zero. Laos, zero. Cambodia, zero.
Why aren't they playing the game?
Mongolia, zero. I'm sorry?
Why aren't they playing the game? This is the world domination game. Why aren't they playing?
It's like we have a one world system. I guess they're not part of this agenda. Maybe they have something else going on.
Maybe they're not high enough up the pyramid.
yeah, that's what I'm thinking. But, man, there's so many holes in this. And I hate to deviate from what we're talking about, but everything that's happening, is just, what I'm getting at is every aspect that we're talking about is controlled. The AI, the COVID, and, absolutely everything. George Floyd, everything is just.
Every part of the script, yeah.
Yeah, everything's part of the script, and people can't go there. People will believe anything, but they won't accept the truth. That's what it comes down to. And people want to sound rational, reasonable. They're so heavily invested in this system that's created around them that they can't step out of it. It's like there's, again, ego. They think they're so well read and they did their research from their so-called research, just regurgitating, and they're just so heavily invested in. They have us mockery. That's all they have when we talk about these type of things. And it's just a movie. You guys are losing, and that kind of thing. They don't understand the programming's around us. And of course, these people that run this world are like evil geniuses, psychopaths, and they have these people under complete mind control.
Have you ever heard of the Tavistock for Human Relations?
I'm sorry?
Have you ever heard of the Tavistock Institute for Human Relations? It's like you got something to look up, don't you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just love it when the ones yell at me through their mask. Put your tinfoil hat back on.
How dare you say that this isn't real?
What's funny is the people wearing the mask, the ones that are wearing the mask, here's the mob mentality. Is when you see a large group of people wearing masks together, they're going to like bully. Like they see one person that stands out, not wearing the mask, they're all going to gang up. But if it's like a 50-50 type of situation where half the people aren't wearing masks, it's just kind of like almost like peaceful. But I've seen it where everybody's wearing masks, and now they're going to be the bullies. Like, I've seen people chased out of like a Trader Joe's store, on video because they're the only one not wearing a mask. So this is the herd sheep mentality that's taking place, and I want no part of it. And I said this: it's great to be awake, but not in a world full of zombies. That's how I always put it when it comes to this world we're living in. And it's great that we all come together. Jason on your platform and others as well. Talking about these things and not mind controlled, and so many, of course, society. Again, getting back to people, whenever you have a discussion, it's never a real conversation. It's just with the zombies, it's always insults, rolling of the eyes, and looking up at authority figures, scientists, a guy with a lab coat, all this nonsense, and just regurgitating what they say because they're smarter than me. Quote, this is what they're thinking. Well, they're on TV. They must be highly intelligent. I'm not on TV, so I'm going to just listen to them. And
Right.
that's the extent of their research.
Yeah,
All
I
right.
saw something in the chat about KKK, and that's what I kind of termed it this week as the KKK, the Karen cancel culture, because they want to get out and cancel people, right? And who do we get to cancel next? And I was driving last week. I had to get just a cheap beater car. The other car had some issues, so I just bought a car, and just really cheap. And I was driving it down to the Department of Licensing, and some old guy. It's clearly one of the lefty types in just the way he drove, and he's got the mask on, and he rolls down his window. He comes up next to me, and he's yelling at me, and I'm like, "What is he saying? It sounds like he's saying your car's on fire." Like, what? And I thought he said your trunk's on fire, and I'm like, "What the hell are you saying?" So I roll down my window, and he's screaming at me, and he said, "Your tabs are expired." I'm like, what the fuck you care? Like, I'm on my way to the licensing op. Like, didn't your mama ever tell you to stay the hell out of people? But it's like
this way to the slaughterhouse. Get in line.
Yeah, it's like everybody thinks that they can be snitchy now, right? It's like they love it, and it's like, what are you doing? Like, how is those tabs have anything to do with you? As I'm on my way to the licensing office to transfer the title into my name, I'm like, what the hell is the matter with? And so I just named it the KKK, the Karen cancel culture, because that's what everybody. It's like they're doing good by calling down people who don't go along with the herd. It's remarkable.
Yeah, what do they need boots on the ground for when they get all the ding dongs to do it themselves?
Mm-hmm.
Pretty much, yeah. Any of those people that would call somebody out on something like that, they're the same ones that back in 1930s, 1940s Germany would be, "She's up in the attic. She's up in the attic."
Yeah, I was at again. I hate to be on that COVID thing, but I was at Costco again today, and again they've got these the big rules about it, and I just walk up as happy as can be, and I'm like, "Oh, I've got a medical exemption." They're like, "Okay," and some guy's like, "Do they allow that?" She's like, "Well, yeah, we have a medical exemption." And he comes running over to me. He's like, "How did you get that?" He was all excited. He's like, "How do I get one of those?" Like, just tell him you have a medical exemption.
First of all, let your brain start to work.
You're allergic to hypoxia. Yeah, exactly. So, it was kind of funny. He wanted to know all about how to get a medical exemption.
Yeah, I bet he did.
It's just funny. Yeah, I thought he was going to chase me down and go, "You can't," but he wanted to know all about how he could do it because he didn't want to wear a mask either. Anyway, again, started to derail the conversation. I have a reputation for that.
I'm good at that too.
We're part of the club, man.
Yeah,
it's good to know I'm not alone, RV. And Wayne and I can do it too. When you join our Solo Scriptura.
We do go off on tangents quite a bit around here.
Oh, if I didn't love you guys, I wouldn't have you on with me.
I know.
Yeah, what were we talking about again?
Well, we make Jason look like a stoic philosopher. He just sits there and nods, and that's.
Well, you know what? I'll say this. There's so many things that are interconnected. Some people might see it as we're going off course, but man, when you're covering the matrix, it's all intertwined.
It is.
And there's so much connections to be made, and again, people need to understand how it all works. They're controlling, of course, the politicians, Hollywood, the music industry, the cartoons, the video games, like we said, the movie, everything. So if you're gonna create a matrix, you have to control all aspects of society, and that's simply what they obviously are doing and have done for many years.
All right, let's take on the next part of this document. Early Jewish.
Are you ready for?
I'm sorry.
No, I was just asking you. I was looking at the document going, "Are you ready for God's kingdom come?"
Yeah, right. Early Jewish and Christian apocalyptic traditions share several basic characteristics which also appear in the 20th century popular science books on robotics and artificial intelligence. Ancient Jews and Christians, caught in alienating circumstances, eagerly anticipated God's intervention in history. After the end of history, God will create a new world and resurrect humanity in glorified new bodies to eternally enjoy that world. Apocalyptic AI advocates cannot rely upon divine forces to guarantee the coming kingdom, so they turn to evolution as a transcendent guarantee for the new world. Even without God, evolution guarantees the coming of the kingdom. Apocalyptic AI looks forward to a mechanical future in which human beings will upload their minds into machines and enjoy a virtual reality paradise in perfect virtual bodies. Despite the pervasiveness of religious and more specifically apocalyptic themes in this popular scientific literature, surprisingly little has been done to study this cultural phenomenon from a religious studies perspective. That is what this paper attempts to do, first by identifying some categories applicable to and themes visible in Jewish and Christian apocalyptic religious thought, and then by seeing how much illumination can be brought to our understanding of apocalyptic AI by applying those categories and themes to it. Oh my God, this guy is jerking off to all the buzzwords he could possibly squeeze in there.
Yes. He is, and notice how this is, again, keep in mind that this is from a state religious institution. That's the publication. But we're going to get in there.
This is Luciferian,
Apocalyptic AI advocates cannot rely on divine forces to guarantee the coming kingdom, so they turn to evolution. And even without God, evolution guarantees the coming of the kingdom. So we don't really need him.
Yeah,
that's the key line.
The height of hubris right there. That is the height of hubris right there. And
a virtual reality paradise in perfect bodies. We're going to do it ourselves. Man.
Yep.
This is way beyond pay your surgeons very well.
Say there.
So let's just be blunt here. I don't know if this is what this guy believes or if he's just commenting on it, but this is Luciferianism through and through. This is everything the Mystery Babylon religion spanks off to. You know, this is their thing.
This is their thing, and again, it is no surprise to me. It may be to some people, but it is no surprise to me that again, this comes from a religious institution, and this is considered some of the highest thinking within that within the academic community, within seminaries. Many of them, if you look at many of the PhDs in seminary now, their position is again that the Bible is entirely metaphoric. There's nothing really solid, no solid foundation there, and that God is an archetype, and that's in seminary. That it's Luciferian through and through. They speak exactly the same words, and they'll look you right in the eyes as though it's truth, right? And again, the higher the education, the deeper the indoctrination. They just keep going, and
100%.
They double down. At every level, no matter what the evidence is, they just look you right in the eye, and they'll just keep going, right? So it's pretty remarkable. You gotta be able to do the research yourself and just not defer your beliefs to someone who's got some letters, right, or wears the white lab coats. That's you're guaranteed going to be led down the wrong path because, in my opinion, because everybody in those seats, in those positions, are compromised, and their entire gig is to tell you, what that storyline is.
Absolutely, and an important takeaway from this too is this kind of a white paper right here, looking at this from this religious perspective and coming from this leading to something called ecumenicalism. And this is what this is about. This is about the uniting of all the different religious beliefs of the world into one religious system. And that religious system is going to be transhumanism. Mark my words. That's what this is all about. And this is what, what you want to call the New World Order or whatever they want to call themselves these days. That's what they're looking for. They want this one world religion, one world currency, et cetera, et cetera. I could talk about this ad infinitum. People have heard this for years and years now. Here it is in black and white on a paper from a religious journal from, one of the main social controllers within the field. And this is exactly where it's going, and it's all Luciferian to the core. But this is get themselves into these positions of authority and stuff here. and they get themselves in these places where they have this kind of influence, and they put out stuff like this, and they're really trying to steer the religious beliefs of Christianity and Judaism here towards this. And I'm sure if you go and look at Islam as well, they could probably, use these same arguments to kind of steer that in the same direction, and, just about every other major religion in the world. So this is what they're trying to do. They're using this as a tool to bring about this ecumenicalism, which is the uniting of all religious traditions, and bringing them together under one common umbrella. And that's what it is, transhumanism. It's a religion, too. It's not just a scientific movement.
Yeah, and don't forget also, of course, even the so-called atheists, they're gonna be gone. There's not gonna be any atheists. They're gonna follow the beast too. They're gonna be following this beast system and falling for it as well. So it's definitely gonna be this one world religion, and the atheists are gonna be wiped out. They're gonna become believers in whoever this leader is gonna be, headed by the UN or whoever it's going to be coming out of. But yeah, it's going to be, everything that's happening, of course, leading to that. It's just parts of the puzzle, and a lot of things lately. I mean, over the years, I've been covering so many events, and it's so predictable. But what's obviously happening now, with the COVID, we've seen this before with the fabrication of SARS, Ebola, going back to even N1H1,
Zika, right?
Zika, all these things, and they're predictably, ended shortly. This one just, of course, lingered on. And, one thing I always say is expect the unexpected, and that's the thing is people, they had us kind of like sleeping, like, oh, another fake shooting, another fake virus and, outbreak. And then this one, boom. And definitely they're ramping up things. So again, I always tell people, people ask me, what do you think is going to happen next? And look, man, it's like watching a movie. I don't get to see the script. I wish I saw the script. I could tell you, but literally, they're mapping things out. And here's a huge thing, and not to deviate from AI, but this is huge. When you realize, for example, the groundbreaking for the Pentagon, which was supposedly attacked in September 11th, 2001. Literally, the groundbreaking was September 11th, 1941. 60 years to the day. So 60
I didn't know that
ago,
one.
60 years. Before it was supposedly attacked. Of course, it was just a psyop, but the bottom line, this is how far they're planning out things. So it's moving forward. How far back have they planned this out? Of course, the tower's coming down 33 years after the groundbreaking with the North Tower. The 9/11 calling system going into play the same year the North Tower construction started. So all these things by the dates and what I'm getting at is what's going to happen in 6 months has already been written. It's already been written by the people pulling the strings from behind the scenes and obviously leading the populace in a direction. And they're just, the people, it's like this is why I cover what I cover over the years. So people realize, look, you're being hoaxed to death with all these events. Yep. And that's the sad thing. There's truthers are actually buying like COVID. They're buying George Floyd. They're buying all this stuff that's world stage theater. And again, making videos over the years demonstrating how these are all hoaxes, psyops leading us in a certain direction. If you're going to believe the moon landing, you're going to believe 9/11 is as we're told, you're going to fall for these stories as well. And that's exactly what's happening, unfortunately.
Well, the real realistic answer to all that is there's probably multiple between them depending upon how people are reacting to things. They've probably got several things mapped out like, okay, this is our end goal. Here's the ways we can get there, and we can adjust the variables as we see things unfold. That'd be my guess on how they do this shit. And of course, they've got these supercomputers now that are running models, conjecture anymore. That's admitted.
Maybe minor details I would think they can change, but overall their agenda, they're not going to let the public dictate anything. They're going to do what they want to do on their time, and if you go against it, you're a conspiracy theorist. So the public's not going to dictate anything.
I think that I agree with RB. They have their end goal in mind, but they do change how they're trying to describe it. I've seen them kind of weasel and sort of say, okay, we're going to describe it this way. Oh, okay, we're going to tell the story a little bit more this way, and then now like this. So it does seem like they sort of take the pulse, change the story a little bit, but ultimately it's all moving in one direction. They do have a hard end goal.
Yes,
what they're trying to get.
Oh,
to.
sure.
And
we know what that is.
Yeah, and with the discussion being on AI again, I consider it again a pretty plausible possibility. Again, I don't like RV. I don't like to prognosticate too much because you set yourself up for losing credibility. You say, I can speculate a little bit, but from what I can tell, kind of the way it's going. Again, I'd say it this way: I wouldn't be surprised if they set up again an artificial intelligence or a sentient being that is actually. Again, if you're a student of eschatology and Revelation, the book of Revelation, or the Apocalypse at all, the idea of the beast and the false prophet, and then they made an image of the beast. The beast gave it a voice to speak, so they could say, hubris things. And so, again, I consider it, as Wayne and I were kind of both alluding to earlier, I think, kind of in an oblique way, that it will appear to be some sort of sentient AI supercomputer, like Sophia or whatever, right? Notice the name they give her, but that it would be instead a platform that's occupied by, again, a malevolent, extra-dimensional being, demon, if you want to put it that way, in such a way that it will seem, as RV said, that atheists will kind of go away, that everyone will worship it, right? They'll see it as a supernatural thing, and probably, I mean, again, that we have created life, right? Man has created life to supersede himself, and that's the story it seems that they're going to present. And it says, everybody's got to worship this thing. Again, it just, and we talked before about the Church of AI is already a thing, right? They're really kind of pushing that we should worship this. So again, I wouldn't be surprised. I'm not absolutely going to be this way, but again, I wouldn't be surprised if you kind of play and the tail on the donkey. That's one ass that sticks out.
I'd like to address my buddy John's question here. He's asking about the future of cash. And that's actually a very good question, because I think we all know that if they can work towards minimizing and then altogether eliminating cash for a digital system, that's a huge thing in getting their it's just another part of the control grid, really.
And I would like to add something to that, Jason. This just came about recently, within the past week or so. I work in the business sector, and there's talk now that banks are having a shortage of coinage, actual coins. So what our business planned on doing is trying to keep extra rolled coins and stuff on hand, because the banks are now saying that there's a shortage of coins. So they're already starting to try and shift this over to, a cashless system when it comes down to it. That's what that tells me. So you see more and more places, because of all the quote-unquote COVID-19 concerns, shifting to, we don't want to take your cash, just use your credit card.
And I've seen several places refusing cash, and I also got the note about coin shortage, that they're that they're doing that, and so they're really pushing and have been for quite some time. And that's again, it seems like they want consent, because they try to make Apple Pay cool and Google Pay and Wallet, and it makes it convenient. And frankly, without even thinking about it, I probably went more than a decade without carrying cash at all. I had enough change for parking if I needed it, or I kept a $20 bill in my wallet just as an emergency, but rarely carried cash. And I've kind of gone back to mostly carrying cash these days, and it is problematic in some situations.
Right, and I sadly find myself in the same position there. Oh, go ahead, RV.
Yeah, no worries, Wayne. Yeah, like I was saying, we have to look back. Over the years, there's been a tremendous talk about the cashless society, and of course, with the European Union, the euro, the North American dollar, with Canada, U.S., Mexico. It hasn't come into play yet, but it's almost like too predictable. But at the same time, with everything that's happening, it's definitely just a matter of time. And one thing I was going to ask about you guys about is with the shortage of coinage. Is it prior to was it 67 when they used a higher percentage of silver in the coins, the quarters, the dimes, and all that? Are these collectors that are like swallowing up a lot of these of the coins? What's the stem of the issue with the coin shortage? That's kind of interesting.
I think it's production thing, they're pulling them out of circulation.
Okay.
They're not saying that. Over the last 50, 60 years, they've reduced the amount of actual, pennies hardly have any copper in it anymore. If they made them completely out of copper, they'd be worth about 12 cents a penny. Even nickels are no longer made of nickel, right? It's mostly aluminum. So they and dimes used to be silver, and that's why they had the little ridge on the edge, because people would file the silver off, right? So they put the little ridge on quarters, and anything more than a nickel has a ridged edge on it. And that was originally because it was made. Yeah, it was made from silver, and people would file it off and still pass it off. So they put a ridge on it. But they haven't been made out of any material like that in quite some time. It's mostly filler material, and you can see, if you look at a quarter, for example, you can kind of see the layers of material there. So they've been using materials, minerals, and metals of lower and lower quality and grade for quite some time. And even now, apparently, again, insofar as I can tell, it's a supply issue. They're simply not coining them. They're not minting them. Just a few things in those quarters, those state quarters, and you notice that this year's got the bat.
Yeah.
Just kind of point that out.
Coincidence.
Coinky dink.
Just another of many coincidences.
Winky dink. Yeah, you got to be a coincidence theory, right? Theorist to buy all this stuff. But yeah, it's anyway. I think it's quietly being done, RV, just to get them, just to make it a hassle. And I've seen a couple of op-ed articles where people are advocating for the end of change altogether. Because it's especially pennies and stuff. It gathers space, and it's just a hassle. You got to go to the change machine, right? That awkward moment when you're walking into the coin star with a big bag of change, and the homeless guy asks for, "You got any change?" And you stand there with a bag of change. No. So yeah. Anyway, it's just they're advocating for the removal of, if nothing else, coinage. And so now, by creating a coin issue, it's making retailers not want to take it. It's easier for them to take the electronic currency, and they have, over the last 18 months or so, been offering. Usually they take 2.5% to 3%, sometimes up to 5%, depending on the nature of the network, for transactions from a retailer. So they're now giving better deals on that. It's lowering down to in many cases, less than a single percent if you have a high enough transaction basis. So they're again making it, incentivizing it for retailers not to take cash, and certainly with the threat of the beer plague, money carries it for weeks and weeks. So it
and
seems
it gets
like
passed around.
Exactly. And they've been telling us for years that, $20 bills, all of them test for cocaine, and fecal matter. So put that together. Little cocaine up your butt. I don't know. It's just weird. You're boofing some cocaine.
COVID, and fecal matter. All
and
together.
Fecal matter. What the shit?
Well, let's just say it's going to be an easy sell. Let's just say this whole thing, if they want to really go for it, is going to be an easy sell, because they've got everyone being a bunch of frickin' germaphobes now.
Well, exactly, and here's the thing: is that in a practical sense, it actually it makes a lot of sense. There's great arguments for having a cashless society. The problem is who's in control of it, and it always is. Many of the things that they propose are actually decent ideas. There's good arguments for ending national borders, for example, and we can stop wars, and everybody's all one. We all sit around saying kumbaya, but the people. The people that are implementing it and their motives are very different. So they create, this is again the standard Hegelian dialectic of problem, reaction, solution, where they create a situation whose solution for it is to do whatever they want. And they already wanted to do that, but they just wanted you to ask for it. And the same way that now they say they're pushing for defunding the police in the U.S. Okay, well, what comes after that? Well, again, if you want the military, but if you want to get around posse comitatus, then then you just do exactly what they're doing, calling for the UN. And the UN comes in, and this simply is a direct result of many sheriffs and local police saying, we're not going to enforce lockdown rules. We're not going to enforce gun grabs. And that becomes a problem, because these guys, as bad as some of them might be, they live in those communities. They go to those churches. They shop in those stores, and they don't want to shoot people if they don't have to. And so when they get called to enforce these things, if they switch the flip, right, they can't rely on these guys to do that. So what do? Defund the police, get the local guys out, bring in UN, bring in some Chinese, bring in some
Whoever,
Russians, bring
something
in some French
for hire.
guys. Yeah, they got an axe to
paycheck.
grind, right? Already, they can release some. They can get rid of some frustrations about the Americans. So, bring in some guys from Saudi Arabia, bring in some guys from the Sudan as part of the UN contingent. They'll be happy to fire on, under orders on unarmed civilians in the U.S. No problem. So again, if they promise something, guaranteed whatever comes after is way worse by orders of magnitude. In the same way that this Q garbage promises all this stuff that says, oh, we're bringing down the deep state. Well, look, even if they took 300 top people and arrested them for pedophiles and sent them down to Gitmo or whatever this garbage is, even if they did that and threw 300 people under the bus, I guarantee you, if you've ever heard of somebody, they're not really near the top, right? They're one of the puppets down below. Even Rothschilds, even Rockefellers, they're puppets. If you know who they are, it's not them. I pretty much guarantee that. They're players. They're certainly in the game, but they're not the ones really pulling the strings for sure. So again, anything that you think is they're doing something good, whatever comes after that, it's going to be way worse. Almost certainly. I've watched the way these guys work for a long time, and it's never straightforward. They're never going to give you anything straightforward like that.
All right, moving on to the next section here. Oh, you got something, Harvey?
No, I was just going to say I agree 100%. Well stated.
Yeah. All right, God's Kingdom Come, Apocalyptic Theology. Properly speaking, apocalypse is a generally eschatological literary genre wherein a prophet receives divine revelation through a vision of a transcendent reality distinct from the everyday world. Apocalypticism, however, occurs in a wide variety of narrative structures. It can be broadly described as the belief that God has revealed the imminent end of the ongoing struggle between good and evil in history. In its fullest elaborations, the breakdown of a proper social order promotes apocalypticism, in which believers expect that God will reconfigure the world and transform humanity so they can enjoy the kingdom eternally. Jewish and Christian apocalyptic traditions drew upon contributions from ancient Israel's prophetic tradition and wisdom tradition, combat myths of ancient Mesopotamia, and writings from Greek and Persian culture. Collectively, these sources found a home in the social landscape of Second Temple Judaism and early Christianity.
Oh man, nothing like the smell of BS in the morning, right?
Wait. Oh, there it is.
Oh, that's good stuff right there. That's bovine scatology. That's what you're smelling right there. Wayne, I know Wayne to be a good enough student of Scripture and church history. We do a show basically semi-monthly on Sundays called Sola Scriptura on my channels, and we talk about these things, and we do exegesis on Scripture. I think he would agree with me in saying that what this guy is punting here is poppycock. He's taking the story and flipping it right on its head.
Absolutely.
Wayne,
by that?
Isn't that the way Luciferianism works?
Yep. They flip it. They flip the script right upside down.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Total inversion of the natural order. Total inversion of things, and that's exactly what he's doing right here. He's completely inverting this whole idea. Calling good evil and evil good, and
exactly.
woe to the man that does that
yep.
and that thing. Yep.
Exactly.
So, that's exactly what's going on here. And this is a guy who's in a position of, let's face it, he's got a lot of pull everywhere he goes. So he's in a position
what you would
of
call a major
authority.
influencer. Yeah.
Right. He's got a lot of influence, and he apparently. I think Jason said in the introduction he's got that kind of Fulbright grant going on or something, doesn't he?
Yeah.
So that should say something right there. Isn't that Fulbright Institute the same one that works with the Bill Gates Foundation and stuff? All these connections, it always points back to the same couple of things. You know what I'm saying? There's always these same players involved in everything. And this guy's one of them. And he's got this paper out in this major academic journal for those that study religious ideologies and
Journal
those
of the American
seminaries.
Academy of Religion. Yep,
right.
That's what it is. But here's the thing.
This is a paper for insiders, pretty much.
But here's the thing, Wayne. Would you agree that there's a fair possibility, even a likelihood, that this guy really believes this gobbledygook and codswallop, because that's what he's been taught by, his mentors.
Yes.
So they believe it, and he's got his letters, and so he's now bought into this idea. And so, right, he would be the first to tell you and vociferously defend the fact that there's nothing nefarious about this. This is all true according to his beliefs, because that's what he's been taught. He hasn't been outside of the seminary in 15 plus years, and so everyone who he admires and looks up to has told him this is the truth, and he believes it.
Right, and I don't doubt that for an instant, because I mean, if you look at humanity in general, most people, we all want the same things, okay? We want, a nice home to live in, a comfortable environment to raise our families, and, enough food to eat, and just the basics of life. We want to live our life without all kinds of people, like, telling us, you have to do this, you have to do that, that kind of thing. We want to have a nice, enjoyable life, essentially, and all people are the same in that regards. And I really don't think a lot of these people have like ill will towards their fellow human beings. I think they really sincerely believe that they're doing the right things, or that they're working towards the right things, and this guy's probably no different. I think he probably does very, very much believe all of this to be true, because that's what he's been indoctrinated with for a long time. And even though he could look at the Bible and the biblical scriptures and come up with this completely inverted idea of what most Christians might be a little leery of if they've actually done any study in the Bible. You could see, I don't think he's got any bad intention in his heart towards doing this stuff. This is what he legitimately believes. But with that being said, you could be sincere and still be sincerely wrong, and I really think he's sincerely wrong, in my opinion. So
I agree, and that's why I wanted to check with you, because that's kind of what I'm reading into this, is that he's talking about it in such glowing terms. It doesn't give the sense to me like it's doublespeak, like I see a lot of op-ed pieces, and I can smell a CIA written piece in the Washington Post from 2 miles away. It's got that stench to it. But this guy seems to be he's pontificating almost too much, right? To the point where guys who are lying, they keep it closer to the vest. He's throwing it all out there because he believes it. He thinks this is the way, and he's trying to come up with apologetics for it. And so again, that's the sense I get. I mean, I always retain the right to be completely wrong, but that's the sense I get from this guy, is that this is his version of apologetics for this idea that he's bought into, that he thinks is the way.
I wonder if there's a transhumanist apologetics movement. I'll have to look into that, because I mean, there might be a there when it comes down to steal one of Crow's terms. Yeah, well, you never know.
What it comes down to, guys, is when the foundation is off and you're a little off, if you're a little off, you're a lot off. When it comes down to it. So that's what gets me about people, and I don't mean to bring this up, but this is a topic I cover extensively, is the flat Earth. I mean, we know they're working on this duality aspect. Old Earth versus young Earth, evolution, versus creation. Why would they be telling us the truth about, living on a ball? Everything NASA puts out is just utterly nonsense. But still, people are like, oh yeah, they're faking it. That's we know they're faking it, but still, that doesn't mean the Earth is flat. So people are like, again, this strong programming is really. Really hard to get past. Of course, the bad stigma on flat Earth and a lot of things. And again, if your foundation is off, and that is this ball Earth that's spinning, orbiting, through space, people can't go there. But again, this is why I really hammer the point with flat Earth, because this is the foundation of all the lies. Of us being a cosmic accident. We're going to need man-made, vaccines and other things from the pharmaceutical industry, because we're just an accident. So this is why it's so very important to me to cover this. And again, people believe in the globe, and then they're going to start falling for nonsense. And
Well,
And
it certainly
that's
is
why
necessary for the alien deception, isn't it, RB? I mean, you got to have
absolutely,
you got to have a planet in infinite space with the probability, right, of extraterrestrial intelligent life to have the alien deception. So it's a requirement of it. But I agree to an extent that certainly it is a big one. It is one of the biggest. And once you swallow that one, you go, okay, if they're going to lie about that, what else? And then you immediately, I mean, for me, it was everything, history, no nukes, like everything fell apart because once you know that they lie at that level, right, that everything's an illusion, it only makes sense that, again, they're lying about everything, not some things, but everything, because once you take people off any kind of foundation, if you've got no foundation, you're lost, right? And so they can just tell you whatever they want. And I agree to that extent that, and if when you swallow that ball lie, if they can make you believe that can make you believe anything, right?
Absolutely. And they give us, option A, that, of course, evolution came from monkeys. Option 2 is we're created by some, alien race, these kind of things. They give you, A and B and C, and it's just like voting, it's none of the above type of thing. And that's so very important. But getting back to the whole, you just mentioned with the whole UFO deception, which I've covered extensively in the past. I mean, literally everything they're doing, this Masonic, there's this Masonic code and everything. Like if you look at, obviously be on the third parallel, when the supposed crash in 1947, and then you had the Phoenix Lights years later, back in the late, I believe it was the late 90s, and you look at the Phoenix Lights themselves, it's shaped like a Masonic square. I mean, they put their signs and symbols everywhere. Then you have Bob Lazar, during his presentations, he is doing all these Masonic hand signs, and of course they're pushing this heavily throughout the years with UFO specials, and if they're pushing it, it's part of, again, of their programming and planting a seed for what's to come. And of course, all these scientists are Michio Kaku and so many others are pushing it, as actuality. So, it's very easy to see when you connect all the pieces together and you look at the big picture. It's very clear to see if they're pushing. Of course, again, we're talking about movies earlier with the AI. Well, how many movies based on aliens? Fire in the Sky and Close Encounters, but Hollywood's programming, and they're just setting us up, and it's so clear to see when you take a step back and you look at it all. It's very plain to see.
All right, next section. Although the popular science works of apocalyptic AI are not members of the apocalypse genre, they contain what Wayne Meeks calls apocalyptic discourse. Because the 20th century robotics and AI authors had access to the full tradition of Jewish and Christian apocalypticisms, there will be little effort to offer a chronological assessment of apocalyptic development or situate the ideas of one group relative to those of others. Rather, the worldview of apocalyptic AI will be analyzed after several basic characteristics of the Jewish and Christian apocalyptic traditions have been described. The next section, we can talk about that if you want, guys, or I can move on to this next section. Alienation, Rome's to-do with Jerusalem. Jerusalem.
What?
Jerusalem. I don't know. I'm just making shit up now.
New word.
I got a little drool on my chin, I think.
I think so, yeah.
Right on.
All right, so troubling political conditions provide fertile ground for apocalyptic writings and beliefs. Well, I guess that's pretty true. The political alienation experienced by Jews and Christians in the ancient world made apocalypticism a favorable religious alternative to cultural submission. This was clearly the case during Roman rule of Palestine. Political power and the right to worship were often stripped away from Jews and Christians, who had little hope but to wait for the Messiah or his return to rectify the world. During Roman rule, Jews confronted a basic conflict in their covenantal view of history. Why did God withhold control of the Promised Land? The followers of Jesus inherited this pre-existing Jewish alienation and established upon it a new religion based on their presumed Messiah. As their political and religious split with the Jews widened, Christians were as uncomfortable in the temple as they were in the agora, where they refused to participate in Roman public religion. Early Christians.
Agoraphobia. Okay. Mhm.
Yeah, exactly. Early Christians desperately awaited the return of Jesus, which would eliminate their twofold political troubles and bring about an eternal end to alienation. Apocalyptics hope that God, as arbiter of absolute justice and rectifier of a corrupt world, will radically reconstruct the world. Apocalyptics, despite their criticism of the present world, are not pessimistic in their outlook. They are passionately concerned, even obsessed, with the possibility of goodness. As this world is so miserably sinful, apocalyptics look forward to the time when God creates a new, infinitely good world. Woo! All right.
Wow.
Have at it,
Again,
boys.
flipping the script on its head. Yeah, we're the good guys.
Yeah, that's basically what he's saying here.
Yeah.
And you'll also notice the repeated use of the word alienation.
And rectify.
Alienation.
Like the TV show. Yeah, the TV show Alienation, of
Yeah.
course, V,
Yeah, I remember that
Visitors, and so many others. I mean, it's just unbelievable how much of that they're pushing. But here's the thing: the big thing about this world is, all they feed us is nonsense, garbage, and nonsense. And if all you're fed are lies, if you're a detective trying to solve a case, and all you're fed is disinformation, good luck finding the truth. And that's literally what they're doing, just constantly feeding us nonsense, garbage. Again, giving us option A, B, and C when it's none of the above. And it's so hard, and this is what it comes down to. People, so many people are just struggling in this rat race in this world we're living in. And it's so hard to take the time to do the research where you're inundated with bills. If you have kids, your mortgage, insurance, literally when you come home, you don't have time to look at this stuff. Yep. And it's a lot of people that literally that I know that are self-employed or have a position they can look at things that see this, that can't see this. The people that are inundated, it's just you're putting another load on them. They're already too busy. Now that it's like you're giving them another assignment, like a huge homework assignment, and they don't want to look at it. It's like, look, I'm already inundated with so much stuff. I can't even go in that direction. So I'll just dismiss it completely. And that's what I've seen a lot over the years.
Well, RV, just to piggyback on that, I don't know if you're at all familiar with what I've been working on since the first of the year, the Awakening Project, in trying to quantify the difference between those who awaken and those who do not. And I had a premise that we could, to some degree, identify certain personality traits among those, and at least tangential points that of correlation between those who wake up and those who didn't. And so now with over 350 respondents. I have validated the premise, but also found some other interesting things. And one of those things is that they have to have enough time to do this. Often when people look into it, they have either, for example, suffered a job loss, a divorce, they've had a major life change, or something gave them suddenly time to look into it. And that is almost universally true among people who have really, again, had a paradigm change, not just one or two things, but when they, again, what we would call red pill or awaken, that they see the everything, right? They start to really look behind the veil. One of the primary keys is that you have to not only have the temerity and the intellectual honesty to follow truth wherever it leads, no matter what the implications, no matter if you look crazy or have to admit that you were previously wrong, and usually you do, but that you also have to have the time and the discipline to look at it yourself. You simply cannot just throw away one set of beliefs for something that somebody else says because you like the way they talk or it resonated with you. It might resonate with you, that's something that somebody says, but you really have to put in the homework and the due diligence yourself to really know it, fully. And I pointed out this before, the long-term, long-standing view of the difference between knowledge, which is imparted information. You can learn the information and regurgitate it, but you don't really know it. You don't have understanding until it becomes experiential, right? Until you know it for yourself. And then wisdom comes as you're able to take that and kind of project it forward and understand what the consequences would be when you act that out. But the vast difference between knowledge and understanding. I often liken it to the, do you want to go mountain climbing with a guy who's read a bunch of books about mountain climbing, or the guy who's been there 12 times, right? Who you want as your Sherpa?
Yeah. It's funny you just said that there's I know people, I talk about like a lot of things that are happening in the world over the years, going way back, and the ones that are heavily indoctrinated, I hate to say it, you go in there, like one of their rooms in their homes, and it's just filled with a ton of books, science books, and all that, and they just fill their mind with these things, and it's like they dedicated so much time and effort into their so-called research. Is basically these science books and whatever they're reading, and all that time and effort and energy going different. Good luck, and that gets back to any type of interaction online, for example, even online, like for example Facebook or Twitter, YouTube. In a comment section of under a video, you're not going to change someone's foundation in an hour, 2 hour back and forth chat. 30, 40, 50 years, depending on the individual. Programming is very hard to break, and when it comes down to it, a lot of times people have to see for themselves, come to on their own terms. They don't want some other individual telling them. They want to come to that realization on their own. Their ego can handle that when they figure out for themselves. But when I hate to say it, but the reality is when you push on them a little bit too much and like proving they're wrong, and now they have a new stance, and now they always look back and say, wow, basically I admit I was wrong, and so told me I was wrong, and now I'm living a different type of I'm having a different outlook on life, seeing things differently, and again, sometimes the more you push on people, the more they kind of like push back, and that's what's happening. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, sure. They feel like they need to defend their beliefs. They feel like their beliefs are being attacked, and therefore they are being attacked. And by inference, they're being called stupid, right? Like Mark Twain, that character, at least it's attributed to him, said it's much more difficult. It's easier to fool a man than convince him he has been fooled, because they have a tendency that they want to defend those beliefs because they've accepted them. And so again, my view and what I try to do anyway is find people who are interested and drop a few seeds now and then. And eventually, those who are interested will always come back and ask questions. And then I can kind of point them in a direction. Well, study this, look into that, look into this. For example, when it comes to the shape of the earth, I'll just drop, you want to look into something? Look into Michelson-Morley experiment. Right? Look into this, or look into the fact that gas doesn't have covalent bonding, so mass doesn't work. So now go look and see what Saturn's supposed to be a gas giant, and Jupiter. How is that going to happen in a 10 to minus 17 torr vacuum when you apply the second law of thermodynamics and entropy? If somebody has the wherewithal to understand what that is and go look, and they'll come back and go, what the hell? I go, I know, right? And so I try to plant seeds and water it from time to time, but I find it mostly counterproductive in the extreme to really try to beat somebody over the head and convince them, because they don't want to be convinced. Mostly I try to interest them, right? And go, did you ever think about, did you know? And to try to get a little bit of intrigue going. Because again, if you push against their beliefs, they're going to immediately push back, right? It's
absolutely.
It's common to people.
One thing that a video I recently released was, this one, the footage from CBS from I believe it was 2011, where they show the so-called planetary alignments, where you can see Jupiter, you can see Mars, and then also you can see Mercury and Venus, which is literally impossible at night because, of course, they are they're closer to the and the heliocentric model anyways, right, closer to the sun. And, all I get was people raging, and they couldn't debunk it. And I said in the video, you just can't, there's no way to weasel your way around this to anybody out there that's a ball earther. There's literally no way. All they had were insults. Oh, you're crazy.
Yep.
You don't know about science. But I'm like, okay, well, how about some actual, evidence to support this heliocentric model, seeing the Venus and Mercury? And some guy had the most ridiculous model showing the ball Earth like on the other side of the sun and seeing the alignment. I'm like, dude, you understand? Facing that way, you're going to be looking at the sun. It'll be daytime. just
I know.
it's just absolutely ridiculous. So what I'm getting at is
absurd, doesn't it, man?
What?
This is what Rose's friend did when I was talking to her, and I was just going to try to get her to ask some questions and try to get her to think, and she came prepared to fight, right? So it wasn't going to go very far, and so I mentioned the black swan, right, which is a thing that's kind of been passing around, this image that shows a couple of oil platforms, and one of them 6 and some odd miles away, just under 7 miles, and the other one's a little over 9 miles away. And when you use geometric information, if you look at a geometric curve, right, and you just apply Euclidean geometry, the basics are that they used a modus tollens argument. And again, this is from another show, but the information is accurate. It's a consistent argument that basically says that the observable horizon can be no further than 1.225 times the observer's height in feet in miles. So that according to this image, right, it could have been no more than even at 6 foot, and it was clearly at about 1.5 feet. The camera angle still taken from a video, so it could have been no more than just a little over 2 miles away at most, 2.73 miles at the most. And so anyway, I was just trying to show her this, and so what she pulls up some video, right, and it's trying to debunk it, and the argument in the video is bass backwards. It's trying to make the other argument that why we can see too far. It's exactly the wrong argument, and it was disingenuous to start with because he's using a convex lens, a magnifying glass, to try to bring something over the horizon. It's like, that's not even the argument. I just started laughing. I was laughing so hard I couldn't even talk. I was like, no, you're kidding, right?
No, you lost your shit and it was hysterical.
I felt so bad.
I remember that. I was on the phone with him right afterwards, and he still couldn't stop laughing.
I know. Wayne and I had to do a stream.
If I could jump in real quick, the funniest thing is way back when, 2015, I was talking about flat Earth all over, of course, on my video social media, and people were constantly hammering about the Felix Baumgartner jump, over and over. Oh, here's your evidence. You think the Earth is flat? Look at this. And then, of course, Neil deGrasse Tyson. That footage was found actually a year prior, 2014, that no one or on the flat Earth side didn't know about until a little bit later, about saying, hey, he's not up, from that height. That stuff is flat, and it's based on, the reason it looks like a curve is because, of course, the fisheye lens. So you bring that up to them, and you just get dead silence from these people. The same people, and I had a huge falling out with a couple of friends over when I said years ago about, the moon being extremely close, not as far as we're told, and they literally blew a gasket over it, and later on, of course, we had from space.com saying, surprise, surprise, how the moon is in Earth's so-called atmosphere now. So you tell people something, and then you look back and you just laugh, and they're so violently defending science, it's they're defending their mother or father. It's like when you talk about anything, and science is real science, and there's a pseudoscience they're pushing, the mainstream, but literally, when you go against anything they're taught, it's like you told them your mom wears combat boots, and they get
RV,
they get violent almost.
RV, that's the thing right there, right? And it's not just anything, right? There's a few things, and that's what really got me going on this awakening project, right? Is that I was looking at the means and methods and understanding how they do it. It's basically the power of suggestion. It's literally like a mass hypnosis, right? It's a spell that they put people under.
Trance, yep.
And exactly. And what I noticed is certain topics will trigger people, and what I know from psychology and from being a counselor at one period of time is that when people respond in a elevated emotional state that's way out of context with the nature of the information, that means that there's some sort of traumatic stress that's built in there, right? So they're reacting just to a memory of something else, right? So when they say people can push your buttons, well, they can. They're actually stepping on what I call an emotional landmine. Well, this was an indication to me that certain things will trigger people, and I found it really odd that this was one that did that, right? The shape of the Earth, if you even suggest to somebody that it might not be a ball flying through space, they lose their shit. I mean, they're their head starts to get red, and then they start sputtering. And I was like, okay, that's not natural, right? So that indicates to me that it is some sort of like post-hypnotic suggestion. It's a trigger that's been put there. And that's kind of what led me down this path of really looking into this. And there's studying a lot of stuff and listening to texts or expositions by Aldous Huxley rather, and McLaughlin, a couple of people who said it. They gave a lot of things away, and part of that has to do with, again, the power of suggestion. That it follows the Pareto distribution that 20% are going to be very susceptible, 20% are not susceptible, and the 60% in between is a standard bell curve distribution. But there are things that they can do to increase their odds, and so that got me thinking. Okay, they know who those people are, and I bet I can find out what those character attributes are, and we're doing it. Like I'm having great success. Look, very statistically significant revelations here of some people have a predisposition that they're more likely. Doesn't mean they're gonna, but they have a personality traits. Specifically, a couple of them are that they have to have that information themselves, and they're less tied to external validation. Right. So those who are very tied to external validation are not going to be likely to let the risk of them losing their place in society by saying the earth is flat, they're never going to do it. Right. Because they have to go along with somebody else, and they don't trust themselves to have the discernment to know. Those guys are smart. I'm not smart. So they're smart. They say it's good. Right. And so those people are going to have a hard row to hoe, and it may be too late. I hate to say that, but some people are so inured in the system that they simply they have to defend it. It's the only thing they've got. And that's why I say that, the higher the education, the deeper the indoctrination, because now they're invested. They've got, monetary time and their entire career at this point. By the time they get a PhD or at least a master's, they've got a lot of time, hundreds of thousands of dollars, and their entire reputation is based on that, right? And you have to publish or perish, but in academia. And so if you step out of line even the tiniest bit, you're done. Especially in this age of cancel culture. So they're absolutely not going to look anywhere that might be controversial. They have to toe the line. It's an interesting place and taught to respect authority and to simply repeat what authority says, and that's knowledge. That's how you learn, and that's built in Dunning-Kruger. It's exactly like Dunning-Kruger. That's what schools are. Right? If you can repeat it, then you're smart and you get the grade. If you ask questions about it, you're dumb. Well, no, asking questions is how you know, right?
Exactly.
But they punish you for asking questions. They're like, no, you're a troublemaker. You have ADD. Here's drugs, right? And so they literally turn off your brain. And again, I feel lucky, and I know I'm talking to different people. I've been in communication with a lot of people who have responded, and many of them did, like me. They got all kinds of trouble in school because we would ask questions. We go, that doesn't make sense. And then the teacher gets mad and said, shut up. Just I'm the teacher, shut up.
I know exactly what you're talking about. When I was younger, I'd question so many things about Earth spinning, and I just say, how does all this water stick to it? I'd question all these things. And one thing I should take a step back. We're talking about Neil deGrasse Tyson, and talking about what he said about, Felix Baumgartner, and at that height you wouldn't see the curve. Here's something very funny. I find very interesting. We all know about the clip with Neil deGrasse Tyson stating, Earth is pear-shaped. It's a little bit wider at the bottom, this. But we see, of course, a perfect sphere when they show the globe with all their, of course, fake garbage depictions of this imaginary ball Earth. But what I'm getting at is...
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah.
So he's implying that it's fatter at the bottom, right? Like it's fat because it's like there's downward, right?
Yes.
Like it's heavier at the bottom. It's like that doesn't even make sense.
But
in your model, it makes no sense. It's retarded.
Yeah.
Sorry.
The point is you have this perfect sphere they're showing all the time with NASA. He's saying it's more pear-shaped, and then here's the thing is that no one really talks about. That I'll probably end up doing a video later on because I have the video clip from several years back of this Google analyst talking about the shape of the Earth, and he said it's potato-shaped. So you have Neil deGrasse Tyson saying it's shaped like a pear. There's Google analyst saying it's potato-shaped, and we're seeing images of a ball from NASA. So what is it?
Yeah.
You know,
every
just
quote
ridiculous.
composite image is perfectly, spherical. So yeah, it
Can't we
doesn't
just
make
ask them to take another new picture with one of their mighty 1 megapixel cameras out there?
Yeah, right. From one of those,
Those are
tens of thousands of
convenient
satellites.
cameras
And,
NASA uses.
And guys, too, I was going to say this too. Years ago, I made that video after, they had that one supposed full photo back from 1973 from one of the Apollo missions. Then in 2015, they had the newest photo, and of course, so-called photo, not real, of course, but they had sex inverted in the clouds, upside down. And this is, people laugh, but I said this to Sam Tripoli on a podcast I did with the Tinfoil Hat podcast. They're called, I know it goes back to the Italian saying for Illuminati being enlightened, but it's literally the Illuminati. They're illuminated and they're naughty, and they love this, the naughty aspect with the sex in the clouds. And they have, like, for example, throughout time, you'll see things like, from, again, getting back to Hollywood, when you see an episode of Star Trek where you could see Captain Kirk holding what looks like a phallus symbol. It literally looks like, the male member for Star Wars with George Lucas, they had an official card released in 1977 of C-3PO that was a dildo. I mean, literally, they said, the people at Tops, they released the photo, they played a little gag. No, this was meant to get out there. Just like when you had the Beatles album, they said, it wasn't supposed to get out there. They always make some kind of BS excuses. Literally, this stuff, again, they're illuminated and they're naughty, and they like their phallus symbols. Just look at the rockets. And, they're I hate to say it, they're like flying penises. They're phalluses. It's just all out there right in front of us, and it's very clear to see. With even of course, with what do you call it, the Eiffel Tower.
I had learned some ads, print ads, and so we were able to break it that was sex or death oriented, almost every one. And you can find, for example, in whiskey commercials, right, or ads, print, either a skull or the word sex in the ice cubes. And it was airbrushed.
I've seen that. The ice
and almost every you'd see a scantily dressed girl, and you could see sex airbrushed in her hair 2 or 3 times. Anything like that was kind of wouldn't catch your eye right away, but when you know what you're looking for, you could find it everywhere. A full face of a girl, they would sex appeared over and over and over and over. And I mean, again, this was in the 80s in print ads, and I found hundreds of examples. So it is, it's not a new phenomenon, but I laughed when I saw that, the sex in the clouds. I'm like, that's just classic, because they've been doing that forever, right? So they used this combination. I always found, the sex one made sense to me. The death occult in advertising, that was a really weird thing that they use. They use a lot of death symbology, especially when it comes to vices, like print ads for cigarettes, print ads for alcohol. They use a lot of death symbology. It's a really interesting phenomenon that it works.
Yeah, they also had the on the topic you're talking about with the whiskey. They also had, I believe it was Pepsi. I forgot it was Pepsi or Coke, but it was one of the two, where if you connect 2 of the cans, one on top of the other, just like sex.
Pepsi. Yes, it's sex.
Sex.
Yep. And the same with the boxes. Yeah, if you stack the boxes, the 12-pack right on top of each other, just the right way. I mean, just end to end, basically, it would say sex. It's again, it's not by accident. There's no way. I mean, again, you got to be a coincidence theorist to believe that all of these things are by accident. And they will say over and over, there's the things from the 60s where they put a few frames of popcorn or Coke in the theater, and the sales bumped up. And then later they came out and said, oh, that was a gag. It was never proven, and just somebody put that out there. So they do this over and over. They'll tell the truth and then debunk it. Right. And I think the same thing was true, for example, Bob Lazar. He's one that when I watch him, I think he's probably believes what he's saying, but they probably fed him stuff and then let him go. There's no way they would actually let somebody, just like Snowden. There's no way they would actually let that get out there if they didn't want it out there. And so the same with Snowden. I think he probably believes what he's doing, but he was set up to follow the breadcrumbs in the same way I did following 9/11. Right. In the first few minutes after 9/11, I was like, what do we do to piss off Osama bin Laden? I thought I'd done figured it out, right? Well, I followed the breadcrumbs. I got this going. I'm smart, right? And so, but that's the way they get you, because once you believe that you've got it figured out, you're not going to back up off that. No, I came to it myself. Nobody told me that, right? But they've been telling you for 18 months that we should expect some attack from Osama bin Laden. So it became, immediately apparent. And so by the end of the day, when they started saying it, I was like, see, I told you. But that's kind of how they get you. They lay these breadcrumbs out. And so I assumed the very same thing with both Bob Lazar and Edward Snowden, that they laid breadcrumbs out for them to kind of, again, force their hand. Right. So they led them into doing it. So they aren't compromised in the sense that they believe exactly what they're saying. But what they're saying is disinformation, misinformation, or a little bit of the truth that they can then debunk. Right. So that's all you got to do to debunk truth is you put 99% truth, one little bit of lie in there, bring it out, debunk the 1% lie and say, see, the whole thing's garbage. And they've been doing that forever, just misinformation.
Well, It's funny you say that, because after each in all these psyops, there's always this misinformation. For example, like there'll be like, there's a lot of predictive programming, of course, in Family Guy and The Simpsons. But right away, there's always like photoshopped images from, like, for example, like George Floyd, Sorry George, and that type of thing, with Lisa holding a hand with the guy.
Justice for George or whatever.
Yeah, Justice for George. Yeah. But I tell these people all the time, like, look, do not rush to put things out. Don't be first. Get it right. Find the actual footage. Look at it through a video footage. Just don't grab some still, some mem, and just run with it. Because again, like you just said there, Baldini, is if someone so-called debunks one little aspect, then it means, everything else that you say is wrong. That's why I'm so very careful
exactly
what I put out, because I'm human. We all can make years putting out videos. You have to be very, very careful. Doesn't mean I'm immune to making mistakes, and it can't happen, but keep them to a bare minimum by doing the proper research. It's better to be last and get it right, to be first and get it wrong, type of thing. And that's the thing.
But and if you do make a mistake, just come out and say it, right? Just come out, hey, I made a mistake. Don't try to mitigate, right, or minimize it. Just I screwed up. I mean, that's like say I rarely prognosticate or speculate, but when I do, I'm very clear that this is a thought. It's possible, but don't tie me down on it. But when I saw the Pink Floyd thing the first time, in the first 10, 15 seconds, it elucidated an emotional response, and that immediately made me go, hey. That ain't right. They're trying to elicit an emotional response. And then when you start looking at it and breaking it down, you find all kinds of things wrong in it. And so these are the kind of things, again, I'm careful on everything. The same way that that one, cop, Port of Seattle, POS, right, police guy.
Greg Anderson.
Yeah, exactly. And he makes this video, and of course, it's what you want to hear. But it just struck me odd, right? And again, I can't say for sure either way, but it did seem really odd, and the timing of it was odd. Everything just felt weird to me, right? So it's just.
Yeah, let me jump on that one.
I tread carefully on all those things.
Yeah, let me jump on that one. This is the thing is, people make claims. I back up what I when I make a claim. Greg Anderson is his name. He goes by Greg Anderson 33. He's flashing a Corona California sweatshirt, turns around, shows in the back, his MMA school down in Southern California, of course. He's been on Fox News. He's been on CNN. There's so many things about him. He's wearing, it looks he has a shirt. It's the exact replica of the Order Out of Chaos logo, the double-headed phoenix or eagle. All these things. It's not just one thing, and that's one thing about me is I look for I work off multiple connections, not just one piece of evidence.
And that's the preponderance of evidence, exactly.
Yeah, but the thing is, with me, and I'm going to be blunt, my views of guys, Snowden, and Bob Lazar, these people, they wouldn't get that spotlight unless they were controlled.
Absolutely.
They might believe what they believe, but I'll tell you right now, there's people. They can't take a chance putting someone like Bob Lazar or Snowden, on TV or whatever, or transmitting whatever they transmit, and hope they're going to say what they want to say. So they don't. It's like the news. They don't want like 80% control, 90%. They are 100% in control, of the narrative, and this way they the agenda is pushed properly, and this is why they must have these people under their wing.
Yeah,
and grab bubbles. We hope he's going to say what we want him to say. No, he's going to stick to the script.
Yeah, but again, he can only say what they gave him. Right. So
Yes.
when they limit what they gave him, right. So it's need to know. They limit what they gave him. They know exactly he's going to say. Well, that's all he can say. Right. Is exactly what they gave him. But they could do a psych profile on him and know that they could crush him and get him to react in a certain way that he would tip and reveal it. So but he's going to look crazy doing it. And so they can mock him for being crazy. And yet, on the other hand, get people to go, oh, UFOs are real. UFOs are real. And that's been, to me, the narrative since the 1950s is to press the idea that they're hiding something, right? What's in the box? Oh, don't look in the box. That means there's something in the box. So they keep going back on this, and so they put stuff out there and then come up with ridiculous denials, swamp gas, right? So you know that it's a lie, and then you go, oh, so they're hiding the truth. What's the truth? Well, the truth is aliens, right? And so they create the narrative by plausible deniability. Right, so that they play both sides of the fence, just like you said, RV. Like they are controlling both sides of the narrative really, really well, and they don't let any loose cannons out there. And for those people who do believe that Trump is going to be the savior of us all, guys, no, presidents are selected, not elected. It was surprising to me that they didn't put HRC in there, but once they did it, once they put Trump in there, I went, oh, now I get it. Right, they make him a pinata, a proxy for everything right of hard left. And then they make you're a Trump supporter, then you're everything bad we think about him, and we're going to call him all these names. And then he acts like he's playing the part. It's WWE wrestling. Man, if you haven't figured out that the politics is wrestling with different suits on, look there. Right? If you think anything has changed in the last 100 years, and just look at the stats, 90% of the time, they do exactly the opposite of what the people say they want. Right?
And I'll say this. This is something that I get a lot of flack from people, because I've never let, I hate to say it, my own followers dictate the course I go, what I'm going to say, the videos I make. I'm going to put out what I believe is the truth, regardless of what people, if it gets, 1,000 thumbs down and 0 likes. And I look a little bit deeper. I think, I hear a lot of truthers talk about, Bill Clinton, he's a murderer. He had people murdered this, and this. I'm like, look, votes don't count. When votes don't count, you don't need to murder anybody. It's all a rigged system. Going back when he's, in Arkansas, people were talking about this, and the whole thing with Ron Brown and the plane crash, and people are like, look, he killed this guy, and Bill Clinton's like leaving the so-called funeral smiling, and Rush Limbaugh is doing commentary about it. He goes, look, he doesn't care about Ron Brown. He's laughing and smiling. No, he's laughing and smiling because it's all just a big facade. It's a big hoax. And that's where people can't go. But again, the foundation is you got to question these people and tell them, say, look, votes don't count. You talk about votes not counting, so why would Bill Clinton need to kill anybody? Even the so-called, I talked about it many times, made videos on the so-called, Bill Clinton VJ. This is one time he's telling the truth. He didn't do it. This is world stage theater stuff. Look at all the photos with Monica Lewinsky. I mean, if you're trying to hide an affair, why would you have countless photos in public, behind the scenes, in the White House, together? It's just, people are not going to get it. They're still stuck in that believing, and the whole purpose is to make the media look legit. Well, look, the media's even going after Bill Clinton, the President of the United States. They're trustworthy. We can rely on them. No, this guy is deep state as it gets. And this is where, people have to understand we're definitely living in a matrix. And one caveat before I go on a bit too long, one thing I want to mention, get back to the UFOs, at a very young age. I must have been 10 years old, 11 years old, watching specials of the Roswell crash. And, they had these specials about it saying how these UFOs, and they're talking to people in the military saying, oh, yeah, we were trying to burn the material, we were trying to break it, and we it was indestructible. I'm like, wait a second, if it's indestructible, why is this UFO in a million pieces supposedly crashing Roswell?
Yeah, right.
They always seem to crash.
At 10 years old, I was saying this stuff,
Yeah.
So I've always had that kind of frame of mind of questioning things and not just absorbing things,
And that's one of the things I see with people who defend the globe model all the time, right? They get stuck in the little details and they fail to see that the whole model can't work. When you put it all together, it's like, but that's nonsense. They can't. And then they'll try to break it down and, again, they'll look at the little details of it, right? So they blind themselves to the whole thing, and by defending every little detail, and they just, you can't count how many yeah buts come out of them. Yeah, but. Yeah, but it's like, ever heard of Occam's razor? Come on, man.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Yeah. That's one thing about me, I'm sorry, Baldi. I was going to say, one thing about me is, it gets back to traits of people, personalities of people that don't give a damn. So, like, I don't care about fitting in when I was a child in school. I was never one to, seek out, make friends. It just happened. People would want to be my friend. I never made any effort. When you're desperately liked and accepted, you're going to be going along with the program of what's said in the media. You want to be, I want to seem intelligent, I want to seem smart, so I'm just going to go along with the program. When you don't give a damn about that stuff, you can see things for what they are because you don't have this preconceived notion. You don't have a bias to go along with everybody else. So it's a big part of having the right traits of an individual that can lead you to seeing things for what they are and not being swayed by peer pressure.
Yeah, I have long said, again, with the idea of the psychology and with counseling, one of the things that, I often would share with people is that, it's not what I think that counts or what you think that counts. It's what I think that you think that matters, right? Most people, they perform for people because they desperately want and need acceptance. And so they model their behavior in such a way that when they see acceptance from somebody else, then they'll lock in on that. That's one of their behavioral patterns. And so they need this approval from others. And when you can get yourself out of that, and, for me, it's a matter of my relationship with the Creator. That's the only one I seek approval from at all. It's other than that, I don't really care what people think, and it's not like in a sociopathic way. I don't give a shit, whatever. It's not like that. It's that I don't need your approval to know if I'm doing well or not. Right. I look to guidance from the Creator on whether I'm improving or doing well, and the rest of it, it's going to fall out where it may. Right. I'll let other people decide if I'm doing well or not, because they're going to believe what they believe anyway, and that has freed me up to really investigate these things, and I don't care. Or I don't worry about what anybody thinks if I, deny the globe as being possible. I don't care if anybody thinks I wear a tinfoil hat. It just is what it is. And, most people understand that, when they meet me that, again, I don't really care. I'm not really that interested. I'm interested in what they think, right? Because I want to know how they think. But I'm not interested in what they think about me. That's not really a part of the equation, and I sense that in many ways you're like that, RV. That you just you're going to go again. For me, I'm going to go where the truth leads, no matter what the implications are, no matter what that means, right? And no matter what the cost or consequences are. And that's why the name of my channel is Unintended Consequences. I didn't mean for it to happen, right? Yeah. I didn't mean to be a tinfoil nut, tinfoil. I didn't mean to wear a Faraday fedora, but that's just what happened. It's not because of what I believe. It's because of what those who control the world believe. I didn't pull it out of my butt that they're a bunch of baby-eating psychopaths. They just are, right? I didn't make it up. It's not a rectal extraction. I didn't pull it out of my butt. It's because I tracked down the truth and discovered, hey, these guys are creeps, man. And then when I find that numerous people, all coming from different directions, all end up in a very similar place, again, that's very telling, right? That we all come from a very different starting point and all end up somewhere pretty close together. That's pretty telling, I think.
Yeah, 100%. And, the whole point, the whole aspect of this is you're not going to make everybody happy, so don't even try type of thing. Just, call it as you see it. And here's a huge thing, too, is, when it comes to the so-called truth community, people are their favorites based on personalities. For example, someone looks similar to them, has the same kind of outlook, music. I'm about the information. If someone, for example, I don't want to say my appearance, but I'm just a clean-cut guy, no tattoos. But I don't give a damn if a guy has, for example, Jason, if you have long hair, if you got tattoos, if you have good information, you're okay with me. I don't
have any
give a damn
tattoos.
about personalities. I care about the information. And if you have good information, you're going to be in a good position with me. And I don't care about, your personal preferences or, how you look like. Just have a good, solid foundation of, look, we know we're being lied to in a grand scale. We're just trying to figure things out. When you have that foundation, I can work with anybody.
Yeah, that's in part why, again, I, keep my identity kind of private. It's not that I'm scared of anything or really too worried about it, but from my perspective, the message is far more important than the messenger, and I don't want people to get caught up in that too much. Or, again, I often say, if you got to know me, you'd probably be in some ways disappointed. I'm just a regular guy. I mean, I'm interesting. I make funny jokes or bad jokes from time to time. I like to cook. I like to, play music and do stuff. But so that part is cool. But I'm just a regular guy. I mean, I got a job. I got a wife. I got all the same problems everybody does. I poop. Same stuff. So don't get too worked up about who we are. It's the information. We're all trying to find the truth, right, and share with you what we come up with, and hopefully that's good stuff.
Yeah, I agree 100%. It's not how someone look. Like I said, some people say, "Oh, a Russian visit doesn't show his face. How can we trust him?" Well, you could trust Donald Trump, Obama, Hillary Clinton. They show their faces. You know how they look like.
Right.
So I guess they're trustworthy then. So this ridiculous notion, and these people that brag about showing their face. I mean, the reason I just like to keep my personal life away from what I do here online. I just like a separation. It doesn't mean when I go out and about, I don't talk about these things. I just don't like, people. People are nosy. They want to know everything about you. And I've actually heard from many truthers say, you know what? They told me this beyond these things. If I would have done things differently, I would have done what you done. Just, go incognito and keep things personal. People like to dig. And then, of course, they get your photo and they Photoshop you. They put a pile of poop on your head and all this kind of stuff online. And you show your face. So.
Right. Well, way back in the day, I did radio early in my career, on what seems like a lifetime ago, and always, most radio personalities, had what they called an air name, because one of the things you learn is that the percentages are right that about 4 to 5% of people are dangerously psychotic. Probably higher now. But when you start doing the math and you realize, what your air coverage is and the amount of phone calls you get, or when you go out and do a live remote, that, if you're out and around a few thousand people, there's a high preponderance, right? That you can get 20, 30 people out there that are dangerously psychotic and when I'm just like, you're the voice they hear in their head. Right?
Or at least do something really freaking stupid and say stupid things that...
Yeah, they do. Well, they do all the time. And so you would get regular callers, right? And they feel like they have a relationship with you, right? Because they've spent time with you. And so like many people do with actors or whatever, they feel like they know that person, right? Because they know all about them. But they start behaving weird. They'll start to dox you and, come to your house and call you on the phone and stuff. Again, I'm talking about the, back in the day doing radio. So most people did, have kind of a radio name to keep some anonymity, right? So you could have a private life. It's kind of, it's kind of a weird thing. So, again, so at this point, when I first started doing stuff on Crow 777, especially due to the nature of it, I don't take any extraordinary measures. The Great Baldini has been my professional kind of nickname for 25 years. So those in the industry probably already know who I am.
And he even does children's parties.
Yeah, no, that's another guy. That's a magician and not very good at it. I might add. I've seen some video.
Great.
And also probably not quite as bald either.
No, I suspect not. And somebody did ask about that on my channel. Like, what does Baldini mean? I said, I'll cover that in my next episode. And there is. But.
Yeah, I was gonna say is you just hit it there, Baldini. Is you get some obsessed people. Like I had this one guy, just like always messaging me, always inboxing me, and just like nonstop. And I just told him, I said, look, man, I said, it's cool, but you can't be messaging me nonstop. The guy was driving me nuts, and he got really offended, got really upset, and he was just attacking me every which way possible and calling me a shill, and just it really hurt, man. It's like, I didn't mean to hurt the guy. I'm like, look, I don't mind people messaging me or contacting me. It's excessive, just really over the top excessive. And that's what happened, and it just got really ugly. So again, this is a reason You know, you don't want people knowing who you are, where you live, and all this stuff, because there's a bunch of nut jobs out there. And unfortunately, there's some in the truth community as well that, and it's happened a million times too, where here comes the knife in the back. You know, oh, Rushovich, you're the greatest. Oh, I love you. Then next second, you know, they're your enemy for whatever reason. And here's a big thing too. You can, for example, someone can follow you for years and years, and you say one thing that they don't agree with. All of a sudden, you're a shill.
Yeah.
And they hate you. They hate your balls, and now they're going on every other truth channel talking bad about you. So you know,
or you're not into something that they are, right? Like, oh no, it's you're not. Oh, you're hiding the truth from people because you don't believe in this thing. And it's like, oh, come on. You know, I feel really fortunate in that most of what I do is kind of preach to the choir, right? So I'm less doing what RV does, which is expose new people to it, and really kind of focused on those who have made this transition, and like how can they kind of connect with other people, and how to deal with those things once it's happened, because it does usually have a profound effect on people when they've taken the red pill. So I feel fortunate in that most of the people that I interact with are some of the most amazing people I've met, and that's one of the things that motivated me to start the channel at all, was these interactions with people who are some of the most transparent, most candid, vulnerable people who really their heart is in the right place. We don't always see things the same way, but we're all they're great people. So I just, again, shout out to everybody in the chat and everybody in this community. They've been fabulous and great to me, and so I really like I really like the people. So, but I can see, RV, how when you get out there and you ruffle the feathers, there's going to be some birds who squawk. That's for sure.
Yeah, that's. I'll be honest, I'm going to be very blunt in my position, where as people that question things, we get attacked. So when I make videos, I'll call the masses like mindless zombies, indoctrinated idiots. I'll kind of jab back at them, because that's what they love to do to us. They love to, like, I always believe this. I treat people the way they treat me. I'm like a mirror type of thing. And what happens is, unfortunately, of course, I have to expect it. Like a video I made talking about, like, the people that are indoctrinated in the globe. I wasn't so kind about it. So people that are like globers, they get wind of it and they just come to my channel and start attacking. So, but like I said, I'm not, I'm cool with people. I'm friends with people. Some people that are globers, like Jose J. Gonzalez runs he's a baller. He's a baller.
I know who he is. Yeah.
Yeah. And, I mean, we're cool. We're cool, and everything's fine. But, 99% of the people on his chat, man, they're vicious. They'll just attack every flat earther. Thing is this, it wasn't like I was attacking globers, but man, they're like relentlessly attacking. I'm not going to be smart.
I understand that. RV. I mean, I do try to take a position of, because I mean, from my position, I have a hard time with judging somebody because they have a different point of view. I can sometimes push back on people from their behavior. Right. I don't care if we disagree about the way we see things or what you believe, but your behavior is telling, and I'll push back if you're a douche. Right? You act like a douche nozzle, I'll squeeze you right in the river. But I'll paddle your canoe. I got no problem with that, right? But it's behavior, right? You're gonna treat people with respect, or we're gonna show you the door. And I have very little patience for that. I often say, I refuse to play chess with pigeons because I don't have the time for that. If you're gonna just like and you don't want to have a conversation, you want to talk, you're not interested in understanding. I mean, that's where I'm coming from. I'll gladly talk to somebody with different beliefs because I want to better understand it. I agree that we might look at the same thing and experience it differently, and that doesn't mean that my experience is really the same as yours. So I can't say that yours is not true. I don't, I didn't experience that. I don't see it that way. But I certainly don't dislike people because they have a different opinion. I try not to call people, idiots or retards or, sheeple. Even if like there are some people who their behavior, they're intentionally ignorant. They won't look at information, right? Because it scares them or whatever. Okay, that's a behavior. And so I don't consider that really ad hom to call, people's behavior out and say, hey, you're being a numpty. Right. I mean, that's what you're doing. So it's not because I think you're stupid, because it really isn't about intelligence. I mean, waking up does seem to require at least the amount of intellectual capacity to understand the issues. But beyond that, it's not simply intelligence. It's not the smart people wake up and the dumb people don't. But it is those people who have like the Dunning-Kruger thing going on. They're ready to climb out ignorant and defend to the death something that somebody else told them they got fifth hand. It's like, well, that doesn't even make sense, right? If you don't know it for certain, if you can't prove it, what are you doing, right? Just say, I don't know. That's an appropriate answer. I'm not sure. But yeah, I try not to, throw a program at people, even when they throw it at me to start with, because I understand they can get frustrated and they're defending their position. But man, again, I will push back on behavior, but not their beliefs. That's just not my position.
I hear what you're saying. Over the years, having really large channels, for example, to be very blunt, you might have 200 positive comments, but that one person that's being persistent, and then it starts getting ugly and then slanderous, and so yeah, it's just something you deal with. I just don't cover, of course, flat Earth. I've covered many topics. Hollywood fake celebrity deaths, and just so many
people want to defend their heroes, right?
Yeah, and not only that, of course. The event in Connecticut, Boston, 9/11, Oklahoma City, all these events. And so, there's certain people that are just going to follow you around every single one of your channel. I had this one guy that was a follower of mine, a quote fan. I don't like to call people fans, but just a follower of mine. And then, again, you say one thing that they don't like, and that one thing just set them off, and now they hate you forever type of thing. So, you're dealing with personalities too, but not to go into long on this topic about these type of things. But what it comes down to, yes, you got to be thick-skinned too. But there's sometimes where people, go over the edge and go way too far and try to dox and this kind of nonsense.
Yeah.
And it really takes away from the truth. Like you said, it's no fun when they get your family involved, your family members. They have nothing to do with this at all. So. Not to deviate too far from the topic, just my experiences doing this for a tremendous amount of time for many, many years, well over a decade, going back to about 2008 on YouTube, just dealing with a lot of drama.
Well, I know I speak for a lot of people, RB. We really appreciate your consistency and persistency despite all the pushback I know you get. I mean, how many times have you heard, but why would they lie?
Yeah.
Right?
Well, here's the thing is, here's the big thing is way back, even so-called truthers would write me off and attack me when I said people like Ron Paul back in 2012. Ron Paul, he's controlled op, and there's so many. There was like all these Ron Paul revolution. He's gonna save us. I'm like, do you people understand anything? To be part of the game, you're part of the script. It's like being in a movie. You're not gonna have a role in it unless you're on the payroll. And I'm trying to explain this to people, and I would get attacked viciously by these Ron Paul nuts.
It's because they want something. They want something to believe in.
Yes, yes, and the biggest line I would get, well, he's the better of two evils. This kind of nonsense. I said, look, you guys call yourself truthers, and you're just, you're straddling the fence. And also, too, a big thing with me was I was calling basically all headline events fake. I was saying news is fake well before Trump ever, said those words. And literally, it was like hijacked. But what it comes down to, truthers were attacking me. Oh, Russia he has no credibility. He thinks everything's fake. He lives in a fake world. He thinks this shooting's fake. He thinks this bombing is fake. He thinks everything's fake. I said, no, dummies. It's not that everything's fake. It's what they spotlight, what they present on TV is fake. And again, these people, years later, they come to figure out this is the case. They never come back.
You are the original auto
We're
host.
sorry. We attacked you for this. Like, for example, there was this one roundtable back around 2012, 2013. I was never invited because they always claimed these shootings were real. It was their discussion was it an organic shooter, or was it someone in the government? It was never a hoax. It was a real event. And I said, no, you guys are way off course. And again, that was really ridiculed way back. We're not to harp on it too long. Not only that, the fake celebrity deaths and these events. And so what I'm getting at is this. They want to seem rational and society, to their friends, their peers. Look, they faked the moon landing. 9/11 is not what we're told, but everything else is real. Where I would totally go against that, and that's the gist of where I ran into so many issues with so many people back then that would so-called write me off because I would say these things.
Yeah, but as I said last time, RB, you turn on a light in the darkness and you're bound to draw some bugs.
Yeah, I like that line. I like that one. That's exactly. I was drawing bugs everywhere, man. It was crazy. I need bug spray.
Right, exactly. No, for sure. I totally get it. And again, I feel fortunate for, again, you're like kind of like the icebreaker, right? You get out there and get the snow out of the way, get the ice out of the way, so the rest of us can come in behind you. So again, I know I speak for a lot of people when we say, big props, RB. Like I said last time, right? When I first heard you, I thought, is this guy nuts or what? And then again, I started looking into what you were saying. I'm like, damn if it isn't.
Yeah, that's the thing is though. I actually presented the evidence. People reject it. It's like this. You get this, and I know everybody. I know Jason. You dealt with it as well. You might have a title in the video, and before people click on it, you know what they're thinking. They're already rejecting it, and they already have their preconceived notions set, and they're just going to go in there and comment without watching the whole video. And I see that so many times where people make comments, and they didn't even bother to watch the video because I covered literally what they're complaining about. I'm like, dude, if this video is only like 12 minutes long, if it went to the 8-minute mark, I said that here. But it's like I said, people again, they'll fight for their stance, their beliefs, and again, once do not attack someone's core beliefs. That's like the worst thing you can do to some people, especially again getting back to people that are heavily indoctrinated, especially the older crowd. I don't want to pick on the older people, but man, it's like the old saying goes, I hate to say it, it's hard to teach old dogs new tricks, and that's why it's a huge that's why they say get them while they're young, and that's exactly what they've done with the schooling system. And of course the public school system, they put a complete stranglehold over that. And here's one thing I want to mention too. It reminds me of a video I covered years ago. It was called Pixel, and the director was Christopher Columbus, just like the man that supposedly discovered America.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah, and in one scene, there was this little chubby kid, and he was talking about some conspiracies. And there's a group of like 5 or 6 other kids, frowning at him, looking down at him, like, you don't have any friends, do you? Because no, I have my grandma's my friend. They made him look really sappy, pathetic, that he's questioning things. And this is part of course, mind control. And it pisses me off to see they're purposely going their way to really have a pushback for independent free thinking. And this movie about pixels, other topics, but definitely they're putting that programming in there not to question authority.
So you guys want to wind this down? We've got half an hour past our time.
Yeah, we did stray.
I'm fine with that.
A bit from artificial intelligence, but we just talked about some lack of intelligence. I think. Sorry about that. I'm legendary for derailing things. So, no, I mean, I guess here's my wrap is everything like RV says, everything they're telling us is pretty much a lie. You got to look into it. You got to have the discipline. And the time and the will to look into it for yourself, and that's where I think again the danger is even among the true communities. If you begin to quote follow a certain content creator and just accept everything they say, right? I mean, they could be wrong, and you don't know for yourself unless you do the research yourself. So I just encourage everybody to don't take my word for it, don't take our word for it. Go look it up for yourself. We can provide our perspectives, and they might be well educated. We might do the research in advance, right, and show you what we found. But again, I would strongly recommend go look for yourself, because that's where you're gonna find the good stuff, and that's where you'll know for certain yourself what you can hold to.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And also, definitely, again, I said it earlier, is personalities is personalities, but when it comes to truth, it's about the information, what can be proven. And not what's the most popular. Like I said before, this celebrity cloning was extremely popular. this whole nonsense of Illuminati sacrifice of celebrities. And I said this before, if they were actually doing these sacrifices with celebrities, there would be a mass exodus out of Hollywood. It's ridiculous, and there's still people.
The word would get out.
It's all fantasy. It's all fantasy, and literally they're just off off the world stage type of thing. And that's one thing like I said, I do not let people dictate my thoughts. It's what could be proven, what makes the most sense, and a lot of connections made, like I said, about Bill Clinton. Why would he need a murder list? It's 50 long, whatever, if votes don't count. It's just, we have to be consistent and think a little deeper and look a little bit further. And here's a big thing, too. With everybody here in the panel, we might not agree on everything, but we are searching. We can come to new conclusions. Maybe something Jason says today I don't agree with, but tomorrow I'll look into it. So, he was right about that. So I'm always keeping on you, Jason. I'm just saying, just using it as an example. Anybody, in truth, I don't reject anything. I'm like, okay, he said that. I'm not sure if I agree with that. Let me look into it. So again, we're being a panel here, it's just good to hear everybody out. And here's the huge thing, of course, no two people agree on everything. But again, the whole foundation of always keep an open mind and always being able to come to new conclusions based on solid information.
All right. Anybody else have any final words? I asked if I should play the cover of "I'm the Slime" that my friend Brett Dietz and I just did, and a couple people said yes. So I guess I'll treat everyone to another 3 minutes of me being a goofball. But the message is clear. Yeah.
Do it.
All right. Here we go. Let me turn off the mic so I don't double the audio.
I am gross and perverted. I'm obsessed and deranged. I have existed for years, but very little has changed. I'm the tool of the government and industry too, for I am destined to rule and regulate you. I may be vile and pernicious, but you can't look away. I make you think I'm delicious with the stuff that I say. I'm the best you can get. Have you guessed me yet? I'm the slime oozing out from your TV set.
Will obey me while I lead you and eat the garbage that I feed you. Until the day that we don't need you, don't look for help, no one will heed you. Your mind is totally controlled. It has been stuffed into my mold, and you will do as you are told until the rights to you are sold.
That's right, folks. Don't touch that dial.
Well, I am the slime from your video, moving along on your living room floor. Well, I am the slime from your video, can't stop the slime when people look at me go. Well, I am the slime from the video, moving along on your living room floor. Well, I am the slime from the video, can't stop the slime when people look at me go.
Good night, folks. This has been Anderson Pooper Scooper reporting.
All right, so if anyone hadn't seen that, I hope you guys enjoyed it. That was a little cover of Frank Zappa's I'm the Slime that my friend Brett Dietz came up with the idea to do, and we had a really good time doing it. Hope you guys enjoyed it. I think the message is clear. I'm the slime from the video, oozing across the living room floor. That's about all your television's good for, folks. But anyway, what you guys want to sign off with?
I just want to tell everybody thanks for tuning in. And, have a great evening. Don't forget to check out the Crow 777 radio show tomorrow. That'll be coming up tomorrow. And, people know where to reach me, alchemicaltechrevolution@gmail.com. Check out my YouTube channel, Alchemical Tech Revolution. I've been posting more things there lately. And I'll say goodnight for Baldini because he had to bow out. So he wishes everybody a wonderful evening as well. And RV, thanks for joining us again, my friend. It's been a pleasure having you here.
Thanks, man. I appreciate that, man. And keep up the great work, man. You know your stuff, and everybody here in this panel does. And it's good to see. And also, my last thoughts is, of course, this controlled matrix we're living in, and waking up people. So it's so very difficult at times, but just keep plugging away. The people that are that are intended to get it, they're gonna be of course hungry for truth, and that's the foundation. You have to have that hunger for truth. If it's not in them, they're not gonna succeed. They're not gonna find that truth. They're not gonna be successful doing that. You got to have a passion for it, and a huge thing is a blinded mind cannot see, and I'll leave it at that. And one last thing is of course everything that's happening now. We have to look forward. We're looking at right now, but we have to definitely look forward and what's going to come, and we have to adjust to what's going to take place. And of course, always people should be well stocked, well supplied, and expect the unexpected. Who knows what they have up their sleeve, what they're going to pull off next.
That's for damn sure. You said it, my friend. All right. Well, tune in to Crow 777 Radio tomorrow, episode 229 with Eileen McCusick, and we'll be discussing biofield tuning. And today we just recorded an episode with James Troop where we discussed the Temple of Solomon, the links with Freemasonry, and all that. Symbolism. We got into a whole lot of stuff. James Troop. Good for us, guys, for this week. Thank you so much to all you amazing people for being here, and have a great night.
my angel, for all to see. Will see manifest beside me, my angel, for all to see. Will speak, manifest beside me, my angel, for all to see, manifest beside me, my angel. The universe will speak, manifest beside me, my angel, for all to see.